Daddy, help me. Steve, where are you?
Hello, and welcome to episode 34 of Voices in the Static, a Silent Hill fan podcast. My name is Whitney, and I'm a longtime fan of Konami's survival horror series and the owner of the fan site SilentHillHistoricalSociety.com. In today's episode, I'm continuing a retrospective on the Silent Hill series with several of my friends and fellow Silent Hill fans, with an in-depth discussion on Silent Hill Homecoming. Say hello, everyone!
Hello.
Hi.
Hello.
Hello.
We got a big group this time, guys. So why don't you all quickly just kind of introduce yourselves?
I'm Toggle Bunny, but I am Destiny on Rely on Horror, and Whitney and I used to, I got invited onto Whitney's podcast a long time ago, several years ago, Silent Hill Experienced, so we go way back.
Yes, we do. And you were on earlier episodes of this retrospective as well.
Yes.
Hi, I'm Rourke. I'm a senior editor for Rely on Horror. And I know Whitney because we used to do the Whispers in the Dark podcast, which thankfully lost to time because it's real bad. And I also do art commissions on Twitter.
I'm Kyle. I'm a freelance journalist that works in the video game industry. Back in the day, I also used to be at Rely on Horror, and I think actually my very first podcast ever was Whitney invited me on this show to talk about, I think it was Book of Memories music, like way long time ago.
Yeah, I believe that was it. Yeah.
Yeah, so that's me.
And I'm William. I'm also a senior editor for Rely on Horror. I also have a YouTube channel called Screaming Wave Productions.
And I'm Amy, and I mostly do art now, and there's some Silent Hill stuff on my Etsy. And I also have alchemillahospital.net and silenthillcommunity.com.
She is the OG Silent Hill fan. I used to go to her fan site before I even made my own fan site. She is a Silent Hill queen, so yeah. Love her sites, love her content, love her artwork. You guys need to check out her Etsy store.
I nominate CJ for tribute.
I was next. I think I'm the last one. Hi, I'm CJ. I'm also with RelyOnHorror.com. And if you've listened to Whitney stuff or Rely on Horror stuff, you've heard both of us on occasions and different things, different podcasts, going back and forth between each other's sites. We've known each other for years, and we both love Silent Hill.
Yep.
I love how he said on occasion, not like
Yeah.
a million times over.
Yeah.
So really, there's a lot of Rely on Horror peeps on here. We're just good friends, and we've always discussed Silent Hill and just survival horror in general together. Hi, Whitney here. By the way, AJ joined the podcast a little bit later while I was discussing Homecoming's development. Here is her intro.
So I'm AJ, also known as the Gaming Muse. I run a YouTube channel where I discuss video games in depth and relate them to mythology and folklore, especially Silent Hill. And I've actually written a couple books on the subject.
I got one. She's great.
Oh, thank you.
She's very, very knowledgeable.
2 of them.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I got 1 and 2.
Technically, she has 3. She also has a script book of all of her Silent Hill theory videos. It's really good. You guys should check out her website. What's your website?
TheGamingMuse.net.
And order the books. But before we jump into discussions on this game, I'm gonna I'm gonna give a summary in case anyone listening needs a refresher. Spoilers, obviously. Okay, so here we go. Players take control of Alex Shepard, a veteran who was injured overseas and returned to his hometown, Shepherd's Glen, out of concern for his little brother Josh, after having disturbing dreams about him while recuperating in the hospital.
Josh! Josh, come back! Where are you going? Josh!
Unfortunately, the staff at the military hospital didn't seem to understand his concerns, only telling Alex he was suffering from post-traumatic shock.
What are you doing?
And pumped him full of drugs most days.
Is Joshua okay?
Given the lack of communication from his parents and his ever-increasing concern, Alex decides to break out of the hospital and see how Josh is doing for himself, and hitched a ride home with a friendly truck driver, Travis Grady from Silent Hill Origins.
Good luck, soldier. Thanks. Thanks for the ride.
Woo, Travis is still around and still trucking. Yay for him.
Is he the only character that's actually returned without any like gimmicks or joke endings?
Well, I mean, you gotta count like Carrie and Heather.
Yeah, but like
And the mailman from Book of Memories.
That's true.
But yeah, he's returned, but he doesn't seem to be affected by the town anymore. Yeah, he's just briefly there.
He's vibing.
Yeah. Imagine like if I went through what he went through in Silent Hill Origins, like wouldn't you go nowhere close to that town again?
you would think, but he confronted his past and he moved on, and now it's just a town to him, I guess.
So they're tight now, Silent Hill and Travis.
He makes deliveries. Somebody's got to.
He comes in and checks up on a lesson every once in a while, and now she's not there. And he's just like, oh, okay.
They've come to an understanding. He's fought his own demons, and now he could pass through the town with no issues. Hopefully, I would hate for him to every time he made delivery had to go confront another personal demon, but he seems to be okay. He didn't seem to even notice the weirdness of Shepherd's Glen, which is kind of weird, but anyway, well, moving on. But things in Shepherd Glen have drastically changed since Alex left 4 years earlier. The place has become a ghost town shrouded in thick fog, with all the shops boarded up, the streets decayed and broken, clocks all stopped at 2:06 a.m., and most of the population has gone missing if the posters tacked around town are anything to go by. Alex tries to get some answers from a stressed Judge Holloway, who seems surprised over his sudden return.
Alex?
Judge Holloway. Hey.
I didn't know you were home. Does your mother know? She didn't say anything.
No, I haven't talked to her. Actually, I haven't really talked to anyone.
But she eventually brushes off his questions and tells him to go see his mother.
Was that when all the businesses started closing?
I'm not sure, Alex. It's been a while.
I was just curious.
You need to go home, Alex. Your mother's not been well. She needs you.
Upon returning home, Alex finds his mother in a somewhat catatonic state, with his brother Josh missing and his father gone some time ago to find him.
I don't know. Your father went to look for him. But now he's gone. Everyone's gone.
Exploring the home, we learn that Alex's home life wasn't the best, as it's clear Josh was heavily favored over Alex, who often received harsher punishments and words from their father, and he was even excluded from family photos.
Yes, sir.
Why are you yelling?
I'm not yelling at you. Listen to me, Josh. Don't you think this is a little too silly for you? Do you want to end up like Alex, playing all this make-believe?
I don't know.
All right, from now on, just let Alex play with his own friends, okay?
After promising to find Josh to his mother, Alex explores the decrepit and foggy streets of Shepherd's Glen, running into numerous vicious creatures along the way. He eventually bumps into his old friend, Elle Holloway.
Oh my God, it's so good to see you. It feels like it's been forever.
Whose little sister Nora has also gone missing, as well as Curtis Ackers, the Kinker's town mechanic.
How about I take that shotgun off your hands?
Yeah? How about if I slap you and kill you, huh? You looking for a weapon? Take a look around the place. I'm sure you'll find something else you could use.
Yes, sir.
During the search for Josh, Alex often collapses after boss battles or finding key items, and will often warp between different areas of both Shepherd's Glen and even the neighboring town of Silent Hill, a place his father strictly ordered he and Josh to never visit. After witnessing a drunk Mayor Sam Bartlett's death via monster over at the Grand Hotel in Silent Hill, Alex wakes to find himself in custody over at the Shepherd Glen police station by a wary Deputy Wheeler.
How did I get here?
I put you here. Haven't quite made up my mind about you yet.
Wheeler, come on, you know me. Let me out.
You won't be going anywhere till I get some answers.
Who lets Alex go once he admits that the mayor was killed by a monster.
So you've seen the creatures too?
Apparently, things have been going to shit in town for quite a while, and Wheeler recently uncovered some, quote, weird stuff about the town and was eager to ask Mayor Bartlett about it. But with the mayor dead, now plans are made to locate Dr. Fitch, who Wheeler claims was tied up in all the same stuff as the mayor, and he hopes might be able to give answers to what the hell is really going on. Alex and Wheeler are separated after a monster ambush and a ceiling collapse within the police station. But eventually Alex does find Dr. Fitch, practicing self-mutilation in a fiery otherworld version of his clinic.
Doctor, do you need some help? You're bleeding bad. Don't you touch me! I bleed out the sin, but it grows back, so I must let it out every day.
Unfortunately, Alex isn't able to get any straight answers from the doc before his head is brutally bitten off by his missing daughter's, Scarlett's favorite doll turned monster. Returning home, Alex learns that his own father was also heavily involved in the secrets of Shepherd's Glen, and had actually left town to Silent Hill not to find Josh, but in an attempt to resolve the town's current problems somehow. But before he can get more details from his mother, Order members from Silent Hill burst into the home, knock Alex unconscious, and kidnap his mother for some reason.
No! No!
Forget the shepherd thing. Let's move.
Elle meets Alex outside of his home, tells him that her mother, Judge Holloway, and the entire town have now gone missing.
Who?
My mom. I can't find her anywhere. The entire town's gone.
I think I know where they are.
Believing that they've all been taken by Order members, Alex suggests that they head over to Silent Hill. Wheeler, who somehow survived the assault at the police station, radios Alex at that very moment, and he's tasked with getting them a boat to cross Toluca Lake. The group is wary about crossing into Silent Hill, as Elle was also forbidden to go there by her own mother, and Wheeler, having heard stories about the town's messed up history, is quite hesitant as well.
Alex, tell me what you know about Silent Hill.
I know Joshua and I were told 100 times never to go there.
Yeah, my mom was pretty strict about it too.
Yeah, well, your parents are right. I'll tell you. I mean, it all fits. All those things we've seen in Shepherd's Glen, the nightmares.
What do you mean?
Silent Hill is what I mean. The place has bad history. Always has.
You been there?
Didn't need to. I heard enough. When I decided to move east, I was looking at a job in Brahms, working with the police. At the time, they had this cop. I can't remember her name, but she'd gone to Silent Hill.
Well, what happened to her?
No one knows. They found her bike outside of town. But I'd heard rumors about the people who lived there. Let's just say they're not too friendly to people who don't share their beliefs.
The Order.
Yeah.
Elle!
Nearing the shore, they are suddenly swarmed by Order members, and both Elle and Wheeler are taken, with Alex only being spared after falling overboard. Despite being captured, Wheeler is still able to contact Alex via radio and let him know that they've been taken to the Overlook Penitentiary. Alex rushes over, finds Wheeler, but Elle has unfortunately been taken to a secondary location. Alex, however, is able to find his mother being tortured on a stretch rack in the solitary confinement.
It hurts so much. Make it stop.
Mom, I can't.
Please, Alex. Please.
Anne must make the choice to either mercy kill her or watch her suffer an agonizing death. While making their way to the prison's exit, Alex and Wheeler come across Judge Holloway strapped to a chair in a gas chamber and go in to save
Judge
her.
Holloway!
Alex!
Quick, you get her loose before they start pumping the gas. I'll shut off the valves.
Yeah.
Alex, thank God. How did you find me?
But during the confusion of freeing her and stopping the gas, Wheeler is taken once again. Alex tells the judge to run away and is left on his own to defeat a large, centipede-like monster who slithered into the room to kill the judge. Upon leaving the prison, Alex enters the Order's church and runs into his father asking for forgiveness in a confessional for basically treating one of his sons like dirt for years, so life would not be worth living and easier for his son and for himself to let go.
What could you have done that was so terrible?
I took my role as a father and I turned it into a daily chore. Fed him, cleaned him, put him to bed. I treated the dog with more respect. And when I was given a second son, the first might as well have been a stranger sleeping in our house.
I feel that you could start loving your son at any time.
I do love my son, Father. I love both my sons. But I had to make a choice. And the only way to live with that was to make sure my son never loved me. I had to make sure that he would never feel joy or compassion. All the things that make life worth living. You must understand, I was only trying to make things easier for him. And for me. And for this selfishness, I ask forgiveness.
Players are then given the option to forgive the father or basically tell him to go to hell. A little later, Alex will come face to face with John Adam Shepard, behind a large organ and suspended by ropes, similar to the position his mother was in back in the prison, where Dad drops the bombshell that Alex was never a soldier. In fact, he's wearing his old dog tags, military jacket, and has actually been at a mental hospital ever since the, quote, accident a few years previously.
I never meant to hurt you, son. I had to make a choice. And now I'm paying for it. We all are. After all I've done, you still wear my old dog tags. That must mean something.
What are you talking about? These are mine. I'm a soldier, just like you wanted.
Alex, you've been in the hospital.
I know. I was wounded in battle.
No. A mental hospital. You've been there ever since the accident.
No. That's not true. I'm a soldier. I protect people.
We had to take you there.
Adam asks for Alex's forgiveness just before he's sliced in half by the boogeyman monster. Beneath the church, Alex is knocked unconscious by Curtis and wakes up strapped to a chair in front of Judge Holloway, who finally reveals that everything that is happening to Shepherd's Glen, the monsters, the fog, the crumbling of the town, was the result of a broken pact with God.
Family is the most important thing, Alex. I would do anything to protect them. That's why I sacrificed my daughter.
What?
knows? They had good intentions. They left the Order to start a new life in Shepherd's Glen, where they feared the wrath of our God. So they made a pact to keep us safe. All that was required was a small sacrifice. Our children.
"150 years ago, the four founding families, Shepherd, Fitch, Bartlett, and Holloway, broke away from Silent Hill's order to move to Shepherd's Glen, on the condition that once every 50 years they would sacrifice one of their own children by their own hand in a predetermined method. All those missing kids Alex kept hearing about were not missing, but very much deceased. 4 years ago, Joey Bartlett was buried alive by the mayor, Scarlett Finch was dismembered by Dr. Fitch, and Nora Holloway, Elle's little sister, was strangled by her mother to protect the town another 50 years. But Adam Shepherd failed to drown one of his boys, which broke the pact and led to God's wrath.
Don't you see? Because of him, our sacrifices were in vain. The pact with our God was broken. Your father's lack of conviction cursed us all. The hope was to revive the order which our founders abandoned. The true faith.
Without God's protection, there was now no choice but for the people of Shepherd's Glen to return to the old ways of the Order in Silent Hill. Those who refused were kidnapped, tortured, and murdered by Judge Holloway and her followers. Judge Holloway then attempts to kill Alex with a drill.
No, Alex. It's time I finished what your father couldn't.
But he's able to overpower her and turn the drill back on her and kill her instantly.
Bitch! It's finished.
He also rescues Elle from Curtis, who's going to brutally torture and kill her with a circular saw for not falling into line. Wheeler is found in another room, already tortured and barely alive, with several knives sticking out of his chest, and Alex has a choice to save him with a nearby med kit or let him die like a dick. Alex tells Elle to get Wheeler, or if you just let him die herself, out of there while he continues on his own to look for Josh deeper within the underground facility. He comes across a sacrificial chamber with altars to each of the founding families, with inscriptions of the names of each sacrifice over the past 150 years. He's surprised to see his own name inscribed on the shepherd's altar, and upon realizing he was the family's intended sacrifice, he finally remembers what really happened to Josh all those years ago. 4 years ago, Alex had taken Josh rowing on Lake Toluca late at night. Josh showed Alex a ring with the family's crest their father had given to him earlier.
This belonged to your grandpa, and his father too. And now we want you to have it. I know it doesn't look like much, but this is the most important thing I could ever give to you.
Is it worth $1 million?
Much more than that. This is a symbol of our family's past and our future.
Can I wear it?
Yes. Joshua, you are never to show anybody this ring. Not even Alex.
Alex snatched it out of jealousy.
Let me see it.
No!
What a piece of crap.
It's not. It's worth more than $1 million. That's why Dad gave it to me. Give that back!
And while playing keep away, Josh slipped, hit his head on the boat, and fell overboard, and ended up drowning. Unable to accept Josh's death, Alex had a mental breakdown and was sent to a mental hospital. And due to the wrong brother dying, the Order's pact was broken.
Do you know what you've done?
It was an accident.
This is not the way it's supposed to be. I chose you. Now you've ruined it for all of us.
He's okay. Right? save him. I can save him. He's okay.
After this revelation, Alex fights a large, pregnant, mechanical spider monster thing who births Josh's dead body once defeated. Alex apologizes once again to his little brother, lays both the family ring and his father's military flashlight on the body before walking away. Depending on the player's choices, Mercy killing Alex's mom, forgiving the dad, or letting Wheeler live, Alex could either leave Silent Hill with Elle.
You're okay.
Yeah, I think so. Oh.
Get drowned in a bathtub by his father, get turned into a boogeyman, wake up in a mental hospital before getting a lobotomy, or get abducted with Elle by aliens while Wheeler exclaims that he knew aliens had been the one to take everyone.
That's where they've been taking everybody.
I knew it!
I knew it!
And that's it. Did I miss anything?
I think that's about it.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was the story. So before we move on to general discussion, let's kind of quickly go over the game's development. It's not quite as insane as Origins, but it's interesting to say the least. All right. Come on, York.
I'm sorry.
Okay, one sec. Hold on, guys.
I really had never noticed how many times Wheeler gets captured. This is the worst cop.
Forrest Whitaker.
Forged 5 giant knives in his chest, and just pull him out. He's all right.
Yeah, he's fine.
Give him some gauze.
Hey, man, he had a health drink.
It's true.
Okay, sorry. Silent Hill Homecoming, the 6th installment in Konami's survival horror series, released on PlayStation 3 and Xbox 360 in September 2008, and was later ported to PC the following month in North America. In Europe, the game released on both consoles and PC the following year in February 2009. The game, however, was unfortunately cancelled in Japan, with the official Japanese Homecoming site only stating that domestic release of the game has been suspended and to please look forward to future titles in the series, which is a shame since Masahiro Ito made a sweet cover art for it and I would have loved to have it in my collection. I have to wonder if the cancellation within Japan might have been due to the amount of violence within the game, since its release was also delayed in other countries until it was properly censored. In Australia, Homecoming was actually banned until May 2009, since the country's classification board refused to even classify it due to the game's, quote, impact violence and excessive blood effects. They apparently were not a fan of Judge Holloway and her drill, so Konami was forced to cut out or censor several graphic scenes from the game to get the game's release within the country. The release in Germany was also delayed for similar reasons until the offending scenes were cut.
I've seen videos of that one.
Of the censored?
Censored, yes.
Yeah, apparently, like, for example, when Judge Holloway was drilling into Alex's knee, a bed was kind of put in the way. And
Wow.
when Adam was sliced by the boogeyman, his body just disappeared. You didn't see it still hanging and exploring. Yeah. It was very, very weird. Also, sales of the original version imported from the United Kingdom were even banned as well. And I kind of wonder what sort of fines a person could get for importing an uncut Silent Hill Homecoming game nowadays.
Imagine getting arrested for Silent Hill.
Yeah. So, like Silent Hill Origins, Homecoming had a bit of a turbulent development, as it initially started in Japan, where early interviews between 2004 and 2006 described Silent Hill 5 as returning to psychological roots and exploring the idea of fear in daylight, a concept that really sounds interesting to me. Unfortunately, Konami had a change of heart over the direction of Silent Hill 5 early on, and maybe due to poor Silent Hill 4 sales, the team was disbanded and the project was then outsourced to a Western developer, The Collective, which eventually became Double Helix Games after several mergers over Homecoming's development. According to an EGM Silent Hill 5 preview article back in 2007, several other well-known development houses were actually in the running to develop the next generation Silent Hill game, but the Collective were the only ones to present a working prototype to Konami, which impressed them, so they got the gig. The team was definitely excited, but Konami's sudden move to outsource to the West caused some dread within the fandom, and the Collective had some damn big shoes to fill. What I find most surprising is that it's clear from all the developer interviews leading up to Homecoming's release that those involved were big fans of the previous games, but it always seemed to me that the 2006 film had a bigger influence, though that's probably because the number of visuals from the film were recreated within the game. You got the look of the nurses, the movie helmet-style half-naked pyramid head, the peeling otherworld transitions, Order members and minor gear.
Way sexier nurses.
Yeah. Order members in minor gear fighting in a smoky and ash-filled Silent Hill.
Cracks in the ground that from a coal fire that didn't happen in the games.
Mm-hmm. Hell, even the symbol of Christabeller's Order, which has absolutely nothing to do with the cult in the game series, but was seen throughout the town in the film, makes an appearance on the church within Silent Hill Homecoming for some reason.
And at one point, wasn't the game or one of the games in development supposed to tie directly in with the movie, and then that eventually got changed too?
I've not heard that. A future game, you mean?
Well, I want to say around that time, they were talking about tying directly into the movie somehow with a future game, like Rose was supposed to be featured or something like that, and then that got pushed back because it couldn't line up with the movie, and then they ended up just changing that.
Oh, I've never heard that. That's actually interesting.
My guess, this is pure conjecture, is Double Helix had only ever worked on like licensed things like the Da Vinci Code before this, so they probably were used to like it feels like Silent Hill movie the game to me.
Yeah.
Yeah, I also think it's important to note, and I'm not trying to call anybody out here, but I very much doubt any studio on Earth, when asked the question, "Do you like the original games?" would answer no.
True, but what I mean is, like, in interviews, they're like, oh yeah, I love the games, I played them so much, before coming out.
That's what I'm saying, though, is that if their answer was no, that would have caused even more concern. It's very easy to just say, yeah, no, those are great.
Yeah, okay, that's true. In the last podcast, we discussed Silent Hill Origins' kind of insane development, which had a switch between developers and a notably different plot from the one we got in the final game. Well, Homecoming kinda has this as well to some extent. See, back in 2012, I had the pleasure of interviewing Tom Hewlett, the producer and associate producer on Shattered Memories and Downpour, with CJ on this very podcast, where Tom discussed his work on the series and the upcoming Silent Hill games. When he joined Konami and was assigned to the Silent Hill series, Homecoming was already halfway through production. He had helped with Origins and was producing Contra 4, so his impact on Homecoming was limited, but he explained that his biggest contributions were to make sure that things within the game fit into series canon. Looking at the final game, there are some who may argue that, he didn't do a very good job, but Tom says they didn't see the first draft, he did. Originally, the producer of the game had wanted Homecoming to be the first of a trilogy. That's right, we could have had 3 games starring Alex Shepard, but that's not all. Other Silent Hill veterans, like Heather and Henry, would have returned as well. There are plans for this trilogy to all lead up to an epic DB Super Saiyan showdown between Josh and Alessa over Toluca Lake for control of Silent Hill.
Never mind that, like, why is Alessa even around,
Yeah.
Well, she was in the movie. And wasn't she just going to be a little girl again?
Yeah.
The spooky movie girl?
So it'd be literally like Teen Gohan.
Yep.
Yeah, if you've ever wanted to know what Street Fighter would look like, but just Silent Hill characters.
Hey man, that sounds awesome.
Wasn't their thing that Alessa was going to represent fire and Josh was going to represent water?
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Yep.
So that was a big thing, and it would have been amazingly epic, except for the fact it wouldn't have made sense in series canon.
I was totally expecting you to go, it would have been totally epic, but fucking stupid.
I was trying to be nice.
No, I won't. It'd have been dreadful. Just a horrible fan servicey. I don't understand what the hell this game or series is about. Here's some Sci-Fi Channel-esque writing.
No, I think it would be like, just imagine again, when like Gohan and Cell are like having their big Kamehameha battle. It's just that, and then all the Silent Hill protagonists are like chucking stuff at Josh to like stop him.
They're all down there like the ending of Dirge of Cerberus, just like, yeah, go.
Got it.
Apparently, asking Tom about this, he said we were supposed to actually be cheering on Josh, but I would be Team Alessa all the way.
Yeah,
fuck
right?
Josh.
Josh sleeps in cargo shorts and sneakers, like in his bed. He's a dirty boy. He's not allowed to win.
Josh is a bunk bed with his like 30-year-old brother.
Yeah.
Not to mention that Josh is like this pampered little snot, whereas like Alessa is just like a regular person that got sacrificed.
She's been tortured for decades.
Yeah. Team Alessa all the way.
Yeah, I got the shirts made up. Team Alessa. So it would not have made sense in series canon given that Alessa's story wrapped up in Silent Hill 3. And, like, why would Alessa want control of the town? It sounded more like a dark Alessa from the movie's wheelhouse and the one we see in the actual games, because I always got the sense that in Silent Hill 3, Alessa and Heather sort of just finally merged together. They're one being now.
Yeah.
Alessa's given up her, I guess,
anger.
Yeah, and the god isn't going to be birthed anymore because Heather barfed it up. There's no
reason for her
to go back. Why would there still be an Alessa ghost child?
Do you think that was an attempt by the developers to maybe tie it in closer with the movie quote canon than the game's canon? Because they're taking a lot of the visuals away from it as well?
100%.
And Alchemilla Hospital was turned into a mental hospital. Why couldn't they just, like, use the mental hospital and call it something else? I don't know.
Yeah, there was already a mental hospital.
From Origins, right?
And they borrowed things from Origins already,
Yeah. That's okay. They also put a prison like a block away from Alchemilla Hospital to begin with, so.
Okay, I hate to, like, voice this thought, but I totally have the mental image now of, like, Alessa facing down Josh, and it's like Endgame where like from the fog like walks out all the characters, and it's just Henry walking out and being like, "What the hell?"
Dun, 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 dun.
Yeah, exactly.
Jesus.
Okay, let's put a pause here. AG's actually here.
I'm so sorry about this.
Hey,
I didn't even remember about today until you messaged me. My cousin came over with her little baby at like noon today, and I just took over everything today.
Well, welcome, AJ. I'm right now in the middle of talking about the development of Homecoming, and I don't know if you're already familiar with how it was almost a trilogy. That would have.
No, I had not heard that.
Quick rundown. I interviewed Tom Hewlett with CJ. He let us know that the original producer of the game had the big idea that Homecoming would be a first in a trilogy that would end up with a big Dragon Ball Z style fight
that I had heard
between Josh and Alessa. And right now we're kind of making fun of like, why would Alessa even fucking care about Silent Hill at this point?
Yeah.
And yeah, so it's just really silly. Anyway, back to the Homecoming we got. Apparently, Pyramid Head was going to be pretty involved throughout the game, according to Tom. You guys know how much all the fans loved his inclusion in Homecoming.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
One of the first big meetings Tom had at Konami with the developer was to try to get rid of him. Because, it again, with series canon, why is he there? There was a bunch of sequences with him from in the game. He was going to chase you throughout the graveyard, and there was going to be more kind of big epic sequences in the hotel. But there were technical problems that came up, so they couldn't make it happen in the final game. So now they were in this tough situation where, because now he showed up, but there wasn't a compelling reason for him to. He
literally makes a cameo and looks in the camera.
Mm-hmm.
Exactly.
It's like there should be like an audience applause as he shows up.
Oh god, that would make a great parody video, like reactions. Like get some old Etika video and have him like, holy shit!
So where originally it was Tom's complaint about him being there was kind of pushed to the side because it was going to be so cool. It was going to be cool and epic chase sequences and shit. It was now, well, shut up, Tom. He just shows up.
Oh my god. I feel like that's worse.
Yeah.
Like, if he's gonna be there, do it right.
Do something
with him.
Yeah, he's really just there because like he's recognizable, you know.
Yeah, he's here to collect a paycheck.
Yeah,
help pay for Pyramid Head's boat.
Yep.
Hey, I mean, he's already working another job as a carny to take care of Heather.
God.
So
I can't help but think that running from Pyramid Head wouldn't be that scary because he's slow as hell. So you're just like power walking away.
No,
from him.
imagine if he just fucking like if he he comes out and he's all slow and you're like, oh, okay, he's slow, and then he just fucking starts sprinting at you like Nemesis.
Yeah,
it would be like the intro to RE3.
Except
you just want him to be a hippopotamus.
Imagine Jim Sterling did a video about how Capcom should have all of Konami's games. Could you imagine a RE2 or RE3 style chase scene, but it's Pyramid Head?
Oh yeah.
I would be into this. I would be into this only if you could set up like Home Alone style traps, like chains to get him on the stairs.
I actually really like Pyramid Head from Silent Hill 2, where he made fucking sense. Because it was a little like It Follows. Like, he's not necessarily there all the time, but even if you run as fast as you can, at some point you're going to slow down, and he's not. He's just going to, like, walk forever.
Yeah, or he'll just turn around a corner, and you'll see him down the street, and you'll turn a corner, and he'll be there. I mean, he doesn't necessarily need to follow, the laws of physics.
Also, I feel like Pyramid Head in Homecoming just about needed to throw deuces every time he saw you. Like, hey, I'm here, because branding.
Oh, well, he was totally your bro in that game. Like, he was not an enemy, really. He even killed your horrible dad.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like, personally, I don't actually really hate that he is in it. I think they could have done a better...
Like, I don't like that a lot of... It felt very branded that some of the things that showed up in Homecoming were like... Everything from the color scheme to Pyramid Head showing up felt very...
Mm-hmm. Well, it was
in fact, Silent Hill movie, the game.
Mm-hmm.
We know you just paid for tickets to see this on the big screen, so we're hoping that you got $40 more for the game.
To be fair, like Resident Evil does the exact same thing. It just doesn't get as much shit for it.
I think Silent Hill Homecoming, though, like Resident Evil was a very big game series before those movies came out, where I don't think Silent Hill quite was it wasn't a massive seller ever, except for maybe the first one. Whitney would know better than me.
It did sell enough to get the greatest hit releases.
Yeah,
you had it like over 1 million sales or 150,000 sales to get that. So it sold pretty well, but it wasn't like Halo or Resident Evil.
Like Silent Hill doesn't quite engender a community of interaction and discussion the way that a lot of other games do, because it is meant to be such a solitary experience. Like, yeah, there's a fandom and all, but it's not like with a Final Fantasy game or like it's a different feeling. And so I think it doesn't quite reach that same level of discussion and popularity that some of the other really huge video game properties do.
But conversely, the movie was actually very successful, so...
Yeah, and that's kind of what I'm saying is, even though we don't, aren't thrilled by the idea, I see why that decision was made.
Oh, yeah.
Can we all just agree, though, that what Silent Hill Homecoming tried to do, they actually managed to do years later as Downpour?
Yes.
Pretty much.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
I think for me, Homecoming fails mostly, besides Pyramid Head's inclusion, I think it fails mostly in its landing. And I guess we'll get into that later, but the whole Alex military angle completely guts the rest of the game, and I think it leaves a sour taste in most people's mouth because of that. I would say Downpour does do it better, But I think everything with the town history and the background of the characters and the way the town's built up, aside from, hospitals being changed and things, sort of cosmetic things like that, I think Homecoming mostly works both as a game and a story until you start getting towards the end and stuff kind of falls apart.
Yeah, I was actually going to go into that a little bit later, but that was part of the reason I kind of soured on it. I even asked Tom about this when we were interviewing him. But I just want to say really quickly about the Pyramid Head thing. Tom actually ended up working with the designer Jason Allen to come up with all the Boogeyman stuff to kind of explain why Alex would have imagined this figure. Scarlet comes from Fitch's daughter. Asphyxia comes from Nora. Boogeyman is Alex's parent killer, essentially. Mm-hmm. So all the notes and the drawings were Tom helping to try to kind of smooth over the inclusion. So it wasn't just, hey, he shows up. There's kind of a reason, a little bit. It was based on drawings from Josh and this poem. It's rough, but he
did the best he could do with what he had.
And Alex could have also seen the executioner images.
Well, they didn't go to Silent Hill though. Well,
I know that, but I mean, it's just just like a photo or a painting that might have transferred over.
Somebody drawing fan art.
I think I would have disliked it less if they had continued that later. Like if they had just decided, you know what, Pyramid Head is just a thing now, and he's a gatekeeper for Silent Hill. But just as fast as it came in, it was gone again.
I feel like that's kind of what they wanted to do, and it's clearly what the movies wanted to do. But I mean, it's like I said with them wanting to kind of cash in on the movies. Pyramid Head is Silent Hill's nemesis. He's the most recognizable aspect of the series, and even though we all hate it, it's a decision I can't really fault them for.
Yeah.
I sympathize with that, but at the same time, I don't think it kind of really excuses him. Just again, when he shows up for both times he shows up in that game, or 3 times, whatever. It's just there to it's like there should be people pointing out there he is, there, yeah.
And I would say that's where it falls apart. If they were able to integrate him into gameplay, and even maybe do it a thing like if he appears in other Silent Hills, he looks different every time. That could have been something interesting, but instead it's just the movie Pyramid Head. He shows up and literally looks into the camera, and then
he shows up and he goes, "Hey, coming in clutch," and then he just fucking dips.
Yeah.
Yes, he does.
That cutscene exists so they could take promotional pictures and put it in promotional ads for the game, so then people that don't know the series could be like, "Ooh, I remember that."
That meme of Leonardo DiCaprio pointing. Hey.
Yeah, exactly.
So, Tom did, point out during the interview that the team did really care. It wasn't like they were blindly creating a game. They just unfortunately didn't have the best direction at first. And, when he came in halfway through, it was kind of too late to really fix a lot of stuff. And there has to be ties to the old games, and the writers came up with a bunch of things they thought they could reference. One strange reference Tom kind of put a kibosh on was with Elle. She was originally supposed to be Laura from Silent Hill 2, because her name was Elle, like the initial L from Laura. And players were going to make the realization during the boat ride to Silent Hill where she would put on James's jacket, which was when Tom told them it wouldn't work because Laura is an orphan. Mary wanted to adopt her while Elle has a birth mother. It just...
And what does that accomplish? What's the end goal beyond just being a reference? So, great, she's Laura, and?
It was just going to be a reference because I think in the interview, Tom mentioned that there was a line or something, either in Lost Memories or something, some other medium that we didn't know where Laura came from. She just showed up in Silent Hill, but we do know where she came from because there's a letter within the game that says she's looking for Mary and they were friends at the hospital and Mary was going to adopt her. So they kind of missed that big plot point somehow.
Instead of the jacket, they totally should have just made it so L calls, like the reference should be L calls Alex a fart face, and then you're like, oh.
She steps on his hand and she's like, "Oh, I'm sorry." She's
points
grown.
at
Character
she
death.
points at the towers and goes 5G.
Oh God. Oh God. I feel like one of the big references that they really missed when they were coming up with their references to put into the game was maybe checking in on the Silent Hill community and finding out that Silent Hill fans really dislike overt Easter eggs. Like, we'll shred you for them. Don't do that. They're terrible about that. Don't do it.
But I guess what's overt when you're not familiar with the series anyway, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah, so...
Step 1, go play the games. Step 2, then make another one.
So, we seem to all kind of be on the same page here, that we're kind of glad Tom was there to argue for Silent Hill canon. I just cannot imagine how insufferable the fandom would have been if Alex spent the game dodging Pyramid Head's knife, Elle turned out to be Laura, and Alessa came back in a future game to have a DBZ fight with Josh. The fans would have it would have imploded.
Would we have gotten another Silent Hill after that? That's the real question.
Probably not.
Well, you know what it would have been? It would have been Resident Evil 5, and the series would have made $1 bazillion and continued on for another decade.
Oh, no.
And all of this would have been real mad.
The worst decision makes the most money.
Yeah.
I feel it, yeah.
So, some other beta version fun facts. Did you guys know that at some point Nolan North was going to voice Alex Shepard?
I did not know that. That'd have been interesting.
Although I do really like the voice actor they have.
Yeah, he's great.
Yeah, he is.
I couldn't figure out why it never happened, but you can actually hear some of his lines over on YouTube. So I don't know if it was like a test thing, but I do have a link if you guys want to check it out.
That's definitely the thing Homecoming is missing is Alex going, no, crap! Like,
He does sound a lot just like Nathan Drake.
It's me, Alex. What's inside? They're all from Dr. Fitch's family. That's what was missing. The doctor's lantern. Dr. Fitch? Are you okay? Did something happen? I wonder if he knows anything about Josh. I hope he's not caught up in this.
So I'm glad that they went with Bloom.
Also, I liked when they first showed Homecoming, he basically looked like a 50-year-old man. A lot like Jon Stewart.
Oh my god, he does. And he still shows up in some loading screens.
Yep, loading screens have the old version with his hair slicked back, kind of gray.
Well, no, it wasn't slick back. It was like an army cut.
Yeah, it was
Elle
very
was
strange.
like a supermodel.
Mm-hmm.
Ugh, God.
Yeah, I remember they were all very pretty.
We talked about Alex's voice actor. That's something I'll definitely give this game props for. It's got really good voice acting. Like,
yes, it does.
For the
Yeah,
most
and
part.
then they did prop up like the facial capture technology was kind of like almost like the leading edge of like facial capture at the time. Like, this Homecoming has this kind of tech. It's like, it looks good.
It's a shame that it's completely destroyed by the fact that the shadows black out their eyes and Alex's hair floats like Lego hair.
Yeah.
Like, looking back at it now and playing it again, I feel like it's a little uncanny valley because it is good for the time, but it there's just something a little off. Watching it now, I was replaying it the other day, and it's a little creepy, which is almost good because it is Silent Hill.
I think the main thing is like their eyes. Like, something about their eyes is really off.
And the teeth.
They're dead.
Oh yeah, they're weird corn teeth.
I guess I kind of disagree because, well, it's not quite the same thing, but I think the character models in this are like atrocious.
Their gummy hair, yeah, I hate them.
Oh yeah,
yeah. Like, imagine looking like if you compare Heather to like Judge Holloway.
The
If you
texture
compare
was
Heather
definitely
to
a step
practically-
down. Yeah.
If you compare Heather to practically any character model from that generation, it's
yeah.
I don't know what happened, but everybody looks like action figures.
I don't know.
Texturing probably has a big thing to do with that too, because Heather's texture was also really good.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Oh, 100%. That is exactly it. But like, I remember like when I was rewatching an LP for this, I like Judge Holloway's hair. Like, it looks like it's made out of like plasticine or like Play-Doh or something.
Like I said, everybody has Lego hair.
Yep.
Molded Play-Doh.
There's something
getting
about
back
it
to the
is
voice
like,
acting real quick. I thought I think it was one of the first Silent Hill games to quote realistically portray how people might react in a situation like that. And as much as I love the dreamlike delivery of the dialogue in the previous Silent Hill games, I thought it was a nice change of pace to go for a more realistic, natural approach to the delivery in Homecoming. So it was. I thought it was an effective way to help you relate more directly with the characters.
Yeah, I felt that was something that was started with Heather, and then it took a big step backward with Henry, and it seemed like with Origins and Homecoming, like the protagonists were acting more like shit, what's going on type. To what they're experiencing, which is really great.
And I think both are valid. Like with Henry, I like the whole he's kind of removed from that, and that's an intentional choice, not just he's just not going to talk or he's going to be real distant. So I think of all the games, I think each of those those acting choices and the voice acting work for those specific games.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. So another kind of like a fun fact. The character model that was tweaked into being Travis Grady was originally going to be a hunter that Alex would meet in the woods at some point. Given the unused voice files unearthed a few years ago from the PC port, it appears that this hunter would have fought alongside with Alex and even directed him to maybe Dr. Fitch's home, maybe.
If you're human, you better speak up. Doug Fitch's place is north of here, through the woods. I'm sure you can find one there. Alex, come on, barricade that door! Come on, push, boy, push!
I'm not sure why they decided to cut the character and shoe in Travis instead. From beta screens, it also looked like Alex actually visited Fitch's home and even confronts the underwear-clad doctor outside as well. I don't know why they changed that level design. But yeah.
It's possible because they lost all of the other connections they had planned that they just quickly swapped one in.
Maybe.
Well, they had other Origins things too. Like they had the mirrors things, and then they had they had Travis and they had like Iron Lungs. Those were in Origins.
Oh yeah, in the hospital. Mm-hmm. So Homecoming was a series' first next-gen game, and Konami tasked the developers to try and update the gameplay for more modern sensibilities by improving the combat and updating other player controls. The game also made use of the Havoc physics engine, allowing furniture to be accidentally knocked over, alerting enemies to where you were, which was a cool update, in my opinion. It was also really neat to see wounds appear on the enemies as you fought them as well. Akira Yamaoka, of course, returned for the soundtrack, which is a definite highlight of the game. One More Soul for the Call is a banger track. I love it. Great track.
I think it's also worth noting that the transition from normal world to otherworld from the movie, even though it's from the movie, is fucking awesome looking.
Yeah, it was cool to see that. I remember when they were showing clips of the game back in like 2007, and they showed that, it was like, oh, that looks so cool.
Yeah, I've always really enjoyed the look and feel of the game. I thought everything was real atmospheric, and it had great fog and lighting effects, and it did feel like the first truly next-gen Silent Hill game at the time.
My only disappointment was that the real-time transitions only happened twice. One of them you're stuck in kind of like a cutscene. The second one's just a hallway. I was like, oh, I really would have liked this on a larger scale.
Yeah,
which they sort of did with Shattered Memories, but a lot less difficult. It was a lot harder to see.
I was just gonna say that I feel like the camera was a little weird. Did anybody else kind of have issues with it?
100%.
The camera's super weird.
Okay.
I was actually going to say one update I liked was the change from fixed camera to the free look, and the first person view, allowing players to get closer looks at items and areas. And sometimes it got a little wonky, but I did like the fact that I could pretty much just stand anywhere, and if I wanted to get a closer look at some bad textures, I could do a first-person view, you know? I mean, they had that in Silent Hill 1, but it was something that they didn't really do again until...
Or some of the strange books on Alex's bookshelf.
Yeah, like Anal Sex for Dummies. I mean, we wouldn't have found that.
Quick thing with the first-person thing. I just discovered this on my playthrough for this podcast. When you go out to siphon the gas out of the truck, for whatever reason, at the very beginning of the game, for whatever reason, there is a fire escape that you can climb. There's nothing up there.
Yep,
You
nothing's
can just
up there.
do it.
Yep.
Go up there and turn around in first-person view at the building across the way. The building just stops. They didn't finish it.
Oh, really?
Really?
Oh, that's funny.
I tried to take a picture of it, but it's an Xbox One game that doesn't let you take screenshots.
Of course.
I think the reason the controls, to me at least, feel weird in the camera is because it's basically like a first person shooter control scheme, but you're in a third person camera.
It kind of plays like American McGee's Alice, like the way you turn and shit.
You know what? It really does. I would never have thought of that, but I like both of those games, and yeah.
So my biggest issue, this has been a problem with Homecoming since the console version and the PC version never fixed it. You can only invert the controls for walking around, but not for shooting.
Really?
It is such a weird oversight, and I hate it.
That is weird.
I hate it so much. It's either the way I said it or reverse, but you can't invert the controls vertically for both aiming styles or looking styles. It's such a pain in the ass to play.
Which is great, because if you didn't like it inverted to begin with, and you wanted to invert it to the way that you play, how about only half of it?
Yep. Here's half. It's like, oh, no, God damn it, I'm missing.
My one last point, my biggest problem with the controls is just that Alex turns so slow.
Now, controversial statement here. I think it controls better and has better combat than Downpour. That's not saying a lot for Downpour, but I still think
I agree.
If that was a modern Silent Hill playstyle, I thought it was perfectly fine, like the way
I don't think that's controversial at all.
Yeah, I like Downpour a lot, but that game has really clunky gameplay.
It does. So, also, the team also introduced a dialogue tree system, which was a pretty cool idea since it allowed players to choose if they wanted to learn more backstory or kind of focus on the immediate situation. But I felt it kind of stumbled when it came to actually influencing the game's ending, especially when it meant you could accidentally get a UFO ending as your first ending of the game just because you decided to save Wheeler, let your mom suffer, and not forgive John Locke.
So I was actually one of those people that happens to, and I'm just going to say that is inexcusable. That is fucking horrible game design.
Yeah, that should never be an option on your first playthrough.
That is so bad.
On the previous games, didn't they lock the UFO ending to being like a second? I feel like your joke endings probably should be a second playthrough or a New Game Plus locked thing.
They're not even just locked, they're complicated to get.
Yeah, exactly.
Don't let people stumble into, haha, this whole thing was a joke.
Yeah, you can never do it on accident. Like Silent Hill 1, you have to use it in the stone in specific places or in,
That's why it's a joke ending. Like you have to work for it, not like, oh, I pulled 6 knives out of Wheeler's chest and now aliens for some reason.
Yeah, at some point, what they're saying is, this is not how we meant for you to play. Go back, redo this.
I'm wondering if it should have been locked, if that was just like an oversight on their end.
100%.
But I also got that as my first. But I did it on purpose because I had the strategy guide and I wanted the little gun.
Did they fix that in the PC version, or is it the same way in the PC as well?
No, it's the same everywhere. Yeah, you can get it your first
they
time
didn't do
through.
shit for the PC version. I think they patched it once, and that's it.
It kind of feels like they're telling the player that they're the joke.
Right?
Another thing I really didn't like in the game was the puzzles. They were boring. There were too many of the damn slide and wire puzzles for my taste.
You don't love the sliding puzzles?
I hate those puzzles.
You don't love them?
My biggest issue with this game is that not only was it a fucking technical failure, it was a technical failure on the one place they needed to get it right, which was their shitty-ass choice of using the same shitty-ass puzzle over and over and over. I hate those puzzles. And frankly, this is my 4th favorite Silent Hill game. It would be my 2nd favorite, but no, they had to use fucking slider puzzles like we're all in the fucking 4th grade getting a congratulations, you got a C average prize at the end of fucking report cards. It was awful.
I got stuck on that for so long. first time.
Well,
I just want to put out there, I read in an interview that they wanted the puzzles to be more connected to the actual environments, but I think...
Well, they got that because my controller connected with the wall a lot.
But I agree. I'm with you, Destiny. They're just really boring, like,
and frustrating.
So they had the right idea first, and then they just didn't do that.
Yeah, they I guess they felt like the earlier games puzzles were they came out of nowhere, no real connection to where you were in the game. But I'm sorry, realistic puzzles in an environment it's just kind of boring. It's not Silent Hill. It's
realistic
boring.
Puzzles in a game where you have quick time events, because that's realistic, you know.
Who was it that said that a second ago? Because I feel like that could have been the tagline for games after really starting with Origins. So they were gonna do the right thing, and then they just didn't.
Yeah.
That's the full quote on the back of the game.
Yeah.
I guess they wanted to try to incorporate more into the environments, and I don't know why they just went, okay, well, everything has to be a wire and or slide puzzle now.
Which
yeah, well, there is that one riddle, the one that you got out of a Halloween riddle book when you were 5.
Well, and like the whole thing about Silent Hill was that it was supposed to be torture. It was supposed to make you work. Like the whole point.
Hey, they tortured you, didn't they?
I mean, they did, but the point of the puzzles, like part of it was, hey, this is weird. This couldn't happen in real life. Whereas I could actually put a shitty fucking slide lock on my dresser. I could do that.
Yeah, I feel like, I don't know. I think it's like a noble ambition to like maybe make them quote unquote more realistic, but like only a couple games earlier was a girl throwing up a demon baby. Like realism is not the number one priority here.
Yeah.
I mean,
we were going for realistic, and that's how it got Scarlet. Really?
Yeah, it's not supposed to be, wires and stuff. It's supposed to be, figuring out what color birds things are.
Exactly.
If you want realistic, go develop Call of Duty. And even that is really not super realistic. Like, come on, it's a video game.
Another frustration I had. A big change was this quick inventory system. You kind of had that in Origins, but this was a modern, next gen thing. And it worked pretty well. That is until you were like me and accidentally used your rare serums all the damn time because you clicked the wrong direction.
Yep.
That was the most frustrating thing.
I never ever use the D-pad. I just open up the menu and find the thing I want.
I liked it.
Once I was able to train myself not to push to the left, it was fine. But even when I just restreamed this a couple months back, I accidentally used my serum and I'd have to reload a save because I was so pissed off at myself. No! God damn it! I accidentally used them! I'm just trying to check my health. No! No! Oh. Wait, okay. I think it did a save, so I will let myself die. Oh my god. Oh, I hate when that happens. Okay, overall, the game got okay reviews, which kind of surprised me given how much people seem to loathe it nowadays. It's currently holding a 71% on Metacritic with a 6.7 user score. Most critics enjoy the new combat and improved graphics, maybe except for the gummy hair, because oh my god. But just like with Origins, people were very mixed on the story. I think I was most surprised by Destructoid's super positive review. They gave the game a 9 out of 10. And a quote, "We expected the worst, but in the end, we were pleasantly surprised by the authenticity of the game's world and the depth of the story."
To be fair, I sometimes get shit-faced while reviewing games as well.
Now, just out of curiosity, who reviewed it at Destructoid?
It was actually several people. Hold on a second. Let me bring it back up.
Oh okay.
I think Electronic Gaming Monthly gave it an 8. I remember them really liking it too.
I can see, like, between a 7 and an 8 is where this game belongs. It's a good game. It has some serious malfunctions. And if you're a fan of the Silent Hill series, like, I can see someone giving it a higher score. I feel like as you're trending upwards towards that 8 or, like, that maybe 8.5 if you played it with your eyes closed and your vodka in you. Those are not Silent Hill long-term fans, because I feel like where you get closer to 7s is people who are like, this is not Silent Hill, but thank you for trying.
Well, that I was actually going to go there next. So I'm kind of personally more with the IGN score myself. They scored it a 6.7. They said it was a bit of a letdown. The gameplay had been reduced from a tense psychological experience fraught with spine-tickling jumps and scares to a generic, predictable action title set in a location with good graphics and a great soundtrack. I'm kind of with them.
That's a fair review.
I liked some aspects of the game. Like, for example, I liked the whole little backstory about maybe this offshoot of the Order wanting to do their own thing and making a pact with God, and now things have gone to shit because someone didn't hold up their end of the bargain. I like that. But then it stumbled with the fact that, you know what? Hey, the guy you've been playing this whole time, he's not really a soldier.
Even though he knows how to do all soldier things all the time.
I gotta argue against that. What does Alex really know? Swing a knife.
Alex,
do a roll.
That's it. Swing a knife. That's the first thing they teach you.
I was prepared for you to make this argument, and I am going to.
He's not that great.
I'm going to totally. First of all, when he dodges, he does boxing shoulder rolls. When he does a spinning
You too, baby.
No. He does actual martial arts. Like if James tried to fight Alex, he'd get the shit beat out of him.
Okay, but he grew up in a household where that might have been stuff he learned.
Well, that's what.
I don't agree. I don't agree.
Wait. So I brought this up with Tom in the interview, and he's like, the twist was always that Alex was not really a soldier and he was a mental patient. And I brought up the whole fighting thing, and he's like, yeah, but in the game, you do learn that Alex wanted to be a soldier. He wanted to be like his dad, and his dad did teach him moves, which is weird because his dad hated him, and he found those fighting pamphlets. So I guess there's an in-game explanation for it.
And he might have tried to impress his dad by, doing things.
Yeah. Also, I don't.
That never really didn't make sense to me, because I was in ROTC for 4 years.
I did ROTC, and those kids are nuts.
They are intense. They are ready for it. It makes
the other
sense.
thing that I think is worth pointing out is video game.
Yeah.
His dad was a militiaman and said, we gotta go to City Hall because we can't go outside.
Also, have you...
Go ahead.
Sorry, go ahead. Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Have y'all ever, actually met someone, especially a young boy? Have you ever seen a boy being raised by a dad in the military who just does not fucking like his kids? Because they do come out like that. That's exactly how they come out, because their dads tend to be very totalitarian, and for some ungodly reason, all decide that their kids need to be doing PT on a Saturday morning. It goes beyond intense when you get into military dads who just really didn't want kids, and they have them anyway.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So if he was trying not to ever get close to him, the chances that Alex would wind up in a mental hospital, actually, that tracks.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like, obviously we're going to disagree, but I feel like that's really shaky. There's some outside sources you need to, Tom's statement, to accept that, because my boy, he can do he's doing boxing shoulder rolls. He's fucking murking everything in Silent Hill.
I just wish there was more of an in-game, maybe if we found maybe a journal from Alex when he was younger about training with his dad, trying to impress his dad, maybe before Josh was born.
Yeah, they have to set up that a little better in the actual game for that payoff to work.
Yeah, It wasn't set up very well. You can make the argument that it's still possible, but I remember later on in the interview that Tom said that this is part of the reason why they made sure that in Downport that Murphy was really a prisoner. They didn't want to pull a bait and switch, just kidding, he wasn't.
And what
in
does
jail.
that do for the rest of the series story-wise? They're just not the thing that they say they are in the beginning, and that's always going to be the twist, because
because that's what Silent Hill 2 did, and we have to do that.
Yeah, every sequel is a sequel to Silent Hill 2.
Yeah.
I think it would have worked. I think this really, I mean, it does work where it's kind of like, oh shit, you know, Alex was really the sacrifice. Because that was built up throughout the game. We learned from how his parents treated him, not being in the photos. You know, you could see that the parents were trying to distance themselves. So when it came time during the 150 year celebration where they had to kill one of their sons, they wouldn't be too attached, and that Alex would go quietly because he had nothing really to live for. He had a horrible life. Like, why would he want to stick around? That was, I think, planted very well within the story and the environments when you explored.
Yeah, all that track's great.
Just not, like, him
Just
doing
the most
barrel
important part.
rolls.
It also ties into that whole thing where, like, he was just like, whoops, I totally forgot I was in a mental institution.
But he didn't really forget. He just, his mind, he couldn't handle.
He's James. He's James again. I get it. Yeah.
You know what would have been great if when that revelation happened, he had a Joker style flashback to all the combat, and he's just wildly swinging it like an idiot.
That would have made it great.
That actually would be funny. What's kind of interesting, though, doing research on this, that the official website actually put together this diary that Alex had while he was, quote, at war. And the shit he imagined for himself, it was pretty intense. So basically, he left his hometown, like, straight out of high school, 18 years old. This is 2003. He left, went to war. He was gone for a couple years. And essentially, he and only his superior officer were the only survivors of, like, an ambush. And then he was sent back home where he was long weeks, months of recuperation, getting the use of his legs back, wondering why his parents never, like, contacted him, having these disturbing dreams about Josh in the hospital and wanting to figure out if he was okay, and the military hospital being like, it's okay, dude, you're just suffering from a break here. Let's give you some more drugs here. Josh is fine. Let's just settle down. Him wanting to escape from the hospital, kind of like wondering why they were kind of wanting to keep him there. It was kind of a neat way to hint that of him, there's something kinky going on with the whole hospital shit. I was surprised that the game didn't allude to it more within the game about his hospital stay.
Now here's a question.
Yeah. And the people's surprises of seeing him in town, like Judge Holloway, his mother, his dad are like, what the fuck are you doing here? It's because they all knew he was at a mental hospital. Even Wheeler, it cuts off. It's just like a little static thing. Like, Alex, what the fuck? What are you doing here? You're meant to be a...
Hell, you there?
Hello?
Who the hell is this?
Alex Shepard.
Alex Shepard? I thought you were in
Hello? Hello?
How did he even get out? Like, who
That's
let him out?
It's explained in the diary entries.
Oh,
so essentially, he stopped telling him about his recurring dreams. He was, I guess, able to get kind of coherent enough where he's taking walks around the hospital. And he noticed that there was like a low amount of staff, and he was just basically able to sneak out one night and then flag down Travis in the truck. Yeah.
Because I was going to say that you could make a strong case for the idea that the opening nightmare is just him having an episode as he's escaping, because
pretty much
start the game with a combat knife, the thing you get when you're in the nightmare world. It's always seemed to me that he escaped from the hospital and slaughtered people on his way out.
Well, he didn't. Well, according to the diary, that's not what happened.
According to this random thing on the website written by an intern, sure.
Damn expanded universe.
It's expanded universe, but it also was something also on the European website. It's slightly different, but we're meant to... Alex was just having bad dreams about Josh, and in the dreams, Josh was in the hospital with him, running away. He'd go get him things. It was a very disturbing hospital. He didn't understand what Josh's problem was and why he couldn't reach him. You notice in the opening, though, I didn't really talk about this in the summary, but Alex is being wheeled in and he's passing different rooms, and you basically see Josh being murdered in each way that the other kids were murdered by their parents. And it seems to be like a mishmash of Alex kind of remembering what real deal was happening in the town and his own twisted version of, hey, I'm actually a soldier and I'm in a military hospital recuperating.
Did he ever become aware of what was happening with the sacrifices before he left? Or was it maybe just the town kind of planting that idea?
It might be the town implanting, but his dad did say when he came out in the boat and recovered Josh's body that he ruined things for everyone.
This is not the way it's supposed to be. I chose you. Now you've ruined it for all of us.
He's okay, is it?
And Alex then kind of just did not accept that he killed Josh and had a breakdown. What I didn't get, though, I think I was a little bit confused on, was the broken pact. I always thought it was broken because at that point in time, Adam chose not to kill Alex because he already lost his son. But doing my research for this, it seemed like because Josh drowned, God took that as you sacrificed the wrong son. But I always liked it better, the fact where Adam just went, fuck this, I already lost one of my sons, I'm not going to kill the other one, and send him away to the mental hospital so he'd be safe,
Doesn't Adam have a line when he's explaining things to Alex right before he dies where he says, like, we always loved you?
Yeah, pretty much. Well, it's during his confession where he's like, it was out of love, I loved my son, but I had to treat him like dirt, and I want God to forgive me.
That's how I always read it, is just that he couldn't take it.
I feel that you could start loving your son at any time.
I do love my son, Father. I love both my sons. But I had to make a choice. And the only way to live with that was to make sure my son never loved me. I had to make sure that he would never feel joy or compassion. All the things that make life worth living. You must understand, I was only trying to make things easier for him. And for me.
The thing is, when you read this shit in like the town hall and about the whole sacrifice, is it had to be done by the parent. So I thought there was more of a thing of Adam refusing to do it. So it's a little bit of a confusion because everything I read, it's like, oh, well, the oath was broken, the pact was broken as soon as Josh died because he was a chosen sacrifice. And now he's already dead, and Adam couldn't kill. Alex was a chosen sacrifice. Josh was supposed to live. He was supposed to carry on the family legacy with the ring, but with him dead, I mean, I'm assuming things could have still been saved if Adam just turned around and drowned Alex then and there. But for some reason, he didn't do it.
Yeah, I think he just couldn't bring himself.
Yeah, that's how I always interpreted it. So I'm a little bit confused on what's actually, quote unquote, canon. Is the oath broken because Josh died by drowning and it was supposed to be Alex? Or is it broken because Adam refused to kill Alex after the fact of losing Josh?
Yeah.
I'm with the latter, but
I think it makes a little more sense. The latter point.
Yeah, that's how I always took it too.
Because Holloway was so pissed off at Lilith and at
really
Father.
Crazy.
Don't you see? Because of him, our sacrifices were in vain. The pact with our God was broken. Your father's lack of conviction cursed us all. Our only hope was to revive the order which our founders abandoned. The true faith.
You know, just the fact that she was so angry because she killed her kid, and here Alex's father is like, nope, I'm not gonna do it. Fuck you guys. And hence why he was going to Silent Hill to maybe smooth things over. I don't know what he was gonna do. Shit was already hitting the fan over the 3 to 4 years where hell was being unleashed, but it just made more sense that way.
I just kind of want to touch on this just because we went over it, but like the nightmare that Alex is having at the beginning is like a shot-for-shot remake of something from Jacob's Ladder, like 100%.
Oh, for sure.
Mm-hmm.
And just because I want to take a chance to take a cheap shot, we mentioned the drawings, Josh's drawings, like Josh's JPEGs. They're fucking amazingly low quality.
Yeah.
Yep.
Another thing, I guess, so I didn't really touch on it in my summary, but it seemed like after the shit went down and Alex was sent away, even Elle, she didn't know what happened to Alex. She just assumed he went off to war, which is why she was kind of upset with him when he came back, because he didn't say goodbye. But pretty much all the clocks had stopped at 2:06. And in that cutscene, you could see a wristwatch, and it stopped at 2:06. So pretty much when Josh died, things, I guess, started going to shit. So it's still a little murky for me, a real reason why the pact was broken.
Yeah.
And the story is a little murky, but like the major aspects I think are pretty interesting and solid. It's just not, obviously you can just tell that they had some struggles in development.
Yeah.
Yeah, I did like that it took a couple years before it completely went to shit for the town. Because you actually find some notes in I think it's the underground layer. There's a review about visiting Shepherd's Glen, like a hotel, and how the things have changed suddenly after their little celebration of 150 years, their town celebration. That the townspeople were mean, and shops were suddenly closing, and the roads were in great need of repair. Like this town was just suddenly crumbling before their eyes, and I like how it was kind of a slow process.
And I love the whole dynamic of the town leaders and the backstory behind them and their motivations. I love all the interconnecting pieces of the town and the way it felt like you were really exploring sort of the dark underbelly of the town's history and the consequences of their actions.
I was always really fond of how the town, to me at least, actually looks like a city that I have been to. Like all the houses have front porches, the rooms have ceiling fans. Like it just feels very American South.
I did like it to a point, but I think one of the biggest drawbacks for this game for me was I thought the environments, in general, were kind of just blah.
Yeah, they
Running
were.
through it was very gray and muddy, and there wasn't a lot to actually look at. I think the highlight for me is when we went to the clinic and then it turned into the Hell Descent. That was like a really cool aspect. It was really bright with orange and reds, and it just seemed like there could have been more. I wish it wasn't so dark throughout the rest of the town, but I guess it kind of makes sense given the situation with the town kind of crumbling in on itself and whatnot.
I do kind of think that the game, one of the big problems I have with it is Shepherd's Glen doesn't feel very distinct from Silent Hill. Like you could, like visually, like they look identical. It's like what you were saying, Whitney. It's just very the same color tones, the same grayness. It's very muted. Both towns look basically the same. Like you could say they're the same. You could say Shepherd's Glen is just a different part of Silent Hill, and no one would question it.
Do we have any idea where Shepherd's Glen is on a map?
Yeah, it's across the lake from Toluca. It's across the lake from Silent Hill. It's like to the, I think it's supposed to be to the right.
It would have to be to the right.
Yeah.
It just seems so weird to me because Toluca Lake seems to be completely surrounded by Silent Hill, like on all four sides. And then I guess Shepherd's Glen is kind of there, like a little.
I always get the impression that Toluca Lake is like the Great Lakes like size.
Yes.
It's got to be massive.
It's a massive.
I was looking into it, and to be the size that it is, to have the lighthouse, like all the things it has, it would have to be the size of one of the Great Lakes.
Yeah, I mean, you get that from just looking at the map. One thing I didn't really like was when we did finally get to Silent Hill, we went to the Grand Hotel. Okay, why is it all shuttered and shit? Is it because it's now an otherworld for Alex and Mayor Bartlett, who's hanging out in there for some reason? and then getting to Silent Hill again and running through the streets, putting back power, and the penitentiary just being there on a street, no like defense. I realize prisons are in towns and there's like things around, there's going to be houses and shit around it. But there's usually a little bit more space between the actual prison and the rest of the town. There's a little bit of space in case of a breakout and shit. This just seemed really strange. It was in the middle of the street. I did enjoy that Downpour put it on a fucking island on itself in the lake.
It seems like maybe, you could say in lore that the old gods are just kind of like, fuck it, just put it all right next to each other. I'm tired.
It's kind of an interesting point, but I feel like the one problem that the overarching problem that Silent Hill just in general has, probably from like a game development standpoint, is like with the exception of Silent Hill 4, is you kind of need to set the game in Silent Hill, which means that the developers are kind of struggled with like, well, we want to make new environments, but also like how big is this town and how much does it stretch out and how much is it repeat? You know what I'm saying? Like, like it's just kind of a problem with the setting. So I'm willing, like the same with Downpour, like it's the same thing. Like what part of like Silent Hill is Downpour on? Like it's all, the town seems so different from game to game, except for 2 to 3, of course.
Yeah, and I'd say that would be more acceptable if they made it even more different. If the town like rearranged itself for each character, but it kind of doesn't. It just seems to rearrange itself in some games as per necessity to keeping the game short.
Well, I feel like if they had done that there would have been so much pushback from fans being like, you can't just do that,
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a tricky thing because at some point when in development, they've got to make new environments, and I can't imagine like trying to like imagine like a studio trying to like completely remodel like the areas from 2 and 3. Like it would be pretty hard,
What were you gonna say, Amy?
I was gonna say, since I was making videos on this was on my mind that they continued with the street names. There's like Craven and Lynn, and there's D'Argento Cemetery for Dario Argento.
Yeah, they did make some cool references that continue the traditions of Silent Hill games.
Kubrick and Carpenter.
Yeah. I just my feelings with this game is there are some highlights. I did like the whole. It's kind of really fucked up that these people would separate from the order and then make the decision that we're fine with setting up our own town and killing our kids every 50 years. That's a okay sacrifice to make. It's continuing the fucked up part of the religion,
I kind of skimmed Homecoming when I was playing. Is there documentation about why they split?
There was just a disagreement, I think, within the religion. They wanted to go off and do their own thing, but they knew that they still had to appease the old gods.
I kind of like the idea that the order from the other games thought these people were too extreme.
Yeah.
Because I mean, they're slaughtering kids every couple of years. Is just hearing Alfred is like, these people were too extreme for Ra's al Ghul. They're fucking. These are the really scary assholes.
Yeah, and now that the shit's hit the fan, they've come crawling back to Silent Hill and the Order. It's kind of neat that Silent Hill's god is a vengeful god. It's like, oh, no, you don't. Yep. We had an agreement and you fucked up. So
I'm one of them gods turning people into salt, except this time there's also razor blades.
Well, they made an agreement with a crappy god to begin with. If you can be like, hey, so slight change to the plan, wrong kid. Is that okay? And that god goes, well, shit, no, it's not okay. Not that one. I'm not giving you that one back, but also...
His name is fucking inscribed already down at the altar. No take backs. No take backs.
We already made the name.
Although, if we're talking about the god responding to things, the surprise ending, I forgot you have to get all the photos, right?
Yep.
And one of the photos shows Alex like going, and it's because Josh took that photo of him, so it seems like at least before fucking Tom announced that no, this was a lead-in for the shitty sequels that never happened. it did seem like the god was like, you know what, I will bring Josh back. Thanks for killing all those assholes for me.
Mm-hmm.
So technically Josh survives, comes back.
I felt like in a way that the idea behind we're gonna kill our kids and it's gonna be fine, like kind of the same way I feel about the 21 Sacraments, where if you actually think real hard about the mechanics behind the spell, it doesn't make sense. Like, why would this help you? It comes down maybe to the fact that they believed it would, so it did, rather than they really were making a pact with the god, since, you know, it kind of seems like throughout the series, people do these horrible things and it works because they believed it would.
What was weird was when I was researching this, I saw like mention of the curse of Silent Hill, and because they were sacrificing their kids, they were, even though they were still like, they worship the same god, they were immune to it. And because this pact was broken, well, then now that curse can extend to their town. What the fuck is this curse of Silent Hill?
Yeah, right.
Is it the stuff with Alessa that they brought the god into being briefly? I didn't understand what this curse was supposed to be. It made a little bit more sense for me that it was just God, like, mad because it didn't get its blood sacrifices.
I kind of like the idea that it's brought about by their belief, not that it's a god with a goal or an intent. Or
God's like, nobody ever asks what I want.
Yeah, it's just that they believe it is. The power of the town is not necessarily conscious. It's just it gives energy to things that have enough belief.
I'd like to imagine that somewhere from the underworld, Claudia's like saying like, I was the only one that got it fucking right.
I knew it.
Yeah.
If it gives power to the existing beliefs and it's only because they believe it's going to do better, would you not want to be born in one of those families? Because those are terrible people. Those are just horrible people if that's like what comes of their beliefs.
So it seems like the kids were unaware, I guess until a certain point where we kind of saw Adam kind of preparing Josh a little bit by saying, hey, you know, you're gonna have to carry on the family name. Here's this ring. It's very special. It's been passed down from my father and my grandfather. It seemed like Judge Holloway misjudged her own daughter, because I don't think Elle would have been okay with finding out a little bit later down the line that her little sister was strangled because of this stupid pact made with God. Yeah. I'm...
Awkward Christmas dinner conversation.
I mean, do you think the parents would actually like tell them what actually happened, or would they
they would have to, because their kids would have to do it
all
again.
over again.
Yeah.
Yeah, but would they tell them right away, or would they maybe wait? Like,
I think they'd probably wait a little bit, but I don't think it would go down very well unless they were able to convince them that it seemed, from what Holloway would say, there was no other way. Like, they're stuck in this and they need to continue this if they want to survive. If they want their town to survive, they have to continue doing this because of the mistakes of their ancestors. And
what happens in 2 generations when the internet hits?
I don't know.
You know what would be super fucked up? If the two had nothing to do with each other whatsoever. If they've been sacrificing these kids and it's meant nothing. And that the town going to shit is just that they live really close to Silent Hill.
I think that kind of ties into CJ's idea. Like, it would be like, because like I've always kind of wondered, like, is the god in Silent Hill, does it actually exist, or again, is their belief giving it power? So maybe... I mean,
there's so many layers of supernatural to Silent Hill. Like,
yeah,
you know, it was like hallowed ground to Native Americans first, and then there's like, you know, like there's all the shit with the boat that sank, and like there's so much shit, and then they put on the cult stuff on top of that, like icing on a cake.
Yeah, like it probably was like scary before, but then the Alessa thing made it way worse.
Yeah.
I would like to have just a slight moment of silence for the 3rd or 4th sequel down the road that would have had to have just gone balls to the walls bonkers with like ghost people coming into the town, like the ghost hunters coming into the town to try and figure out why everyone who comes here disappeared.
That sounds awesome.
Right?
Ghost Hunters Silent Hill.
I want the episode of BuzzFeed Unsolved where they go to
Yes.
Silent Hill.
No,
A found footage Silent
I want
Hill.
Zach Baggins. I want Zach Baggins and Ghost Adventures to go down there.
Fucking
Hell
I always
yeah.
like the idea of doing like a what was it, Whitney? The comic Silent Hill Past Life, was it?
Mhm.
Where
One
the
of them did
town was like a or do like either do a whole one where the town is in like almost a colonial setting the whole time, or
yeah.
do like
That'd be
half
awesome.
half of the game in colonial times and then half in modern times, and you can kind of flip back and forth. Not necessarily maybe as the same character, but just as a contrast, almost like Back to the Future, where you have the repercussions in the past you're able to see in the modern times.
Shadow of Destiny, but Silent Hill.
But produced by the guys from American Vandal.
You could do something like that, kind of like the those original Blair Witch games, where like half of it you're playing as Rustin Parr. Yeah, I'd do that. Today we're going to be exploring Silent Hill, notably one of the most haunted towns in the USA.
But it's also a favorite tourist destination still, for some reason.
They're like an interviewing
Let's be real. If there was a town like that with that many rumors, so many people would be going to visit.
Oh, totally. People go to people go to the actual dangerous quote unquote real Silent Hill because they're like, whoa, are we gonna see Pyramid Head?
No, you're gonna fall into a fucking sinkhole full of fire, you idiot.
Exactly. I don't know. Like I would totally, as a fan, go to Silent Hill and be like, oh, this is the spot where James fought Eddie, and like,
and there's like a fucking placard.
Yeah,
James Sunderland beat in Eddie Dombrowski's head with a pipe. You can still see the stains.
Framed pizza case.
Yeah.
Yeah. I felt this. We should also probably talk about kind of. I mean, we talked about the overarching story, but some of the side characters. How did you guys feel about them? Do you feel that they were just kind of there? I was a little put off at times at how some of them just kept popping up randomly after supposedly being killed.
One of my favorite characters, if not my favorite, is Alex's mom, Lillian. I love the way her character is set up in the rocking chair and just that whole introduction and how she's portrayed. And I absolutely love the scene where she's sitting in the chair and tells Alex, "You don't know anything about Silent Hill." That's my favorite line in the game.
Start telling me everything you know about this.
I don't know what that is.
Stop lying. I'm tired of it. I know all about Silent Hill.
You don't know anything about Silent Hill.
And I actually like Judge Holloway. Her death was a great, brutal death. I'm sorry, Australia, you were missing out. I know the UK, historically, the UK and Australia have had, really high, real trigger happy censor boards. That's whatever. But I thought that was something we really hadn't got to see a playable character do with the drill with Judge Holloway. And I was a big fan of her death. I'm not a big gruesome Saw kind of guy, even though Homecoming and the Saw games have a lot in common. But I thought that was a nice punctuation in a series that thus far you had seen certain things like that. Pyramid Head was very graphic, but you never saw like a for lack of a better term, human on human violence quite like that. And it was real quick, and it was real brutal, and I really enjoyed it.
It's also great because it's like vengeful.
Yeah, it's
like,
satisfying
so much
too. Like,
emotion.
you're the player character doing it, and
he called her a
pretty
bitch
much
too.
wanting to do it. Yeah, the whole game.
I loved it.
Bitch! It's finished.
I was like, yeah, you tell her, Alex. She's drilling in your knee.
Yeah, fuck her. Because all the other comeuppances in the series have always been either like desperation, like like fighting off Eddie, or there's things like Kaufman where he's taken in by like Lisa's ghost and shit. Like this is just like you killed my crush's sister and now you're trying to drill a hole in my leg. Fuck off.
Yeah, and you could argue that those previous deaths were more sort of an emotional satisfaction, whereas this is just sort of a physical, visceral, violent reaction that Alex is finally able to get vengeance.
Admittedly, I'm not the biggest fan of that stuff because, one, I think it dates the game horribly. Like, it came out when Hostel and Saw were really popular. And kind of like probably my single biggest problem with this game is like the lack of subtlety. So like a great moment, and one of the great things obviously about Silent Hill 2, and there's many, is like James has got to reach into the hole, and he feels something, and he recoils, and that is so much more effective than the Homecoming equivalent, where Alex puts his hand in and something rips off his arm. It's like, this totally does not get this series. Like that's my take.
I think
really
you could have
don't like-
both if they're both done well. Like you can have subtle moments, say in a game like Homecoming, where you still have that visceral stuff, but it's balanced out better. I don't have any problem with either version if they're done well. I would agree that Silent Hill overall as a series, can be done better subtly. But I also like the fact that this game took the chance of being a little more visceral and letting you experience that.
It definitely seems more American horror with the amount of violence.
But that's another good thing too, is that it's different. And obviously being different for the sake of being different is whatever. But
it stands out.
It wasn't just the he puts the hand in and nothing happens, or it's a subtle moment. Like, that's fine. But if that's all you're gonna do, I mean, granted, you could still vary that up within that dynamic, but it just is a nice change of pace, as is a lot of the stuff in Homecoming. It was nice to see them just do something different.
I guess this kind of rolls in. I was wondering what you guys thought of their bosses and enemy designs. I thought, for me personally, the boss designs were really good. It was a real good connection, even kind of subtle connection to the big story about the kids and how they died. I appreciated the kind of details that went into all these bosses. Like, you could pick up that, hey, these big things are just going after the parents. I mean, then Alex, because he's there. But I kind of like those connections. I thought it was a step up, especially from Origin's boss designs.
Yeah.
I thought it was a step
feel
up.
like the monster designs in general are one of the strongest aspects of this game. They all look incredibly interesting. I'm having trouble thinking of one I didn't like.
Especially compared to Downpour, which
Downpour.
Yeah. Downpour,
and there's a bug aspect to so many of them, spiders and bug movements.
One of the things I really like about Homecoming's creatures, especially keeping in mind that this is like a branch off from the Order, is in all the other Silent Hill games, the monsters have always tended to be like if they have a weapon, they're holding it. But with Homecoming, a lot of the creatures that have a sort of more direct weapon, it's like metal and shit, like bolted onto them, like the upside down spider creature, and you have this, what is it, the Siam, the thing,
Siam, yep,
Shades of James, where it's like two creatures like super glued together and shit, and then the final spider boss that's all tricked out with metal and everything, and it gives this feeling of like that these are like regular Silent Hill creatures, but perverted by this other thing, that they've had all this extra shit bolted onto them, and that even they are in pain.
Yeah, it's there's still also a little kind of direct line to Silent Hill with, the roaches and stuff. There's another like connection, or Silent 1, 2. There's like certain aspects that are still getting carried over. So when we're playing it, we could see shades of the previous games, even with these new monster designs.
You can even see shades of James.
I thought the inclusion of the sexy nurses were a little, tired.
It's a movie thing.
But they did, okay, I'm bringing in the supplementary material again, but Alex's diary, he did make this mention of how sexy the nurses were who were taking care of him. So I guess there was a reason behind it, but it didn't come through at the game.
Really tacked on though, because he didn't have a thing going on with that.
Yeah. But I did think it was really cool with shining the flashlight on them, and you could see a little fetus inside.
The thing I think is really cool is it's the game that I feel does the if you turn your light off and stop moving thing, then they kind of like shut down. I feel like it does it the best, because I feel like there's no reason at all to deal with that sort of shit in 2 and 3. But here, I like that they took something from the movie, and I feel that works. I really like doing that. It makes me feel clever.
I like, how they freeze in place.
Yeah.
And the game did continue the whole, like, if you don't have your flashlight on, if you try not to make noises, the monsters won't necessarily come after you. You could sneak by them sometimes. depending on your playstyle. So I guess we're kind of in agreement that the monsters were well designed.
Yeah, I think in general the boss battles, for me at least, were another highlight of the game. I think reviewers at the time noted that they were very much in the like a Zelda style boss.
Mm-hmm. And, very big, and you had to kind of circle them and do your own thing.
Like a cinematic kind of boss battle. I love the fight with Scarlet. I thought that was really cool how she emerged from the pool of blood, and you had to knock the porcelain off her to damage her.
She was so difficult.
Scarlet's the standout boss fight of the game.
She was the best in my opinion.
Yeah, I think the bosses definitely are much more. There's a solid mechanical foundation to them. Like Silent Hill bosses, I think up until this game and even after, I find that like people have their favorites. Like everyone loves Double Pyramid Head or God in Silent Hill 3, but those are like thematically interesting, not like mechanically. Like no one has fun fighting Double Pyramid Head.
Boss battles are very well thought out.
Run to a corner, turn around, shoot. Run to another corner, turn around, shoot.
And I know CJ and I have talked about this. AAAX.
Homecoming.
There's no reason to use anything but the starting game dagger. It's the strongest weapon in the game.
The order members that you fight.
Yeah.
It's just laughably bad. They can not get a hit on you if you just mash that combo.
I guess maybe I'll be the dissenting opinion again, but I actually really don't like that you like murder actual people a lot in this game. Like I really don't like first of all, the minor thing, there was no coal fire in the video games. Like, it's just a movie thing. And it's just like, I really don't like Eddie, for example. Like that's an important moment. Like you killed a human. That's important in James's story. But here you're just like you're Nathan Drake suddenly, and you're like murking like people by the truckload. It just feels so.
You can't see their face, so it doesn't count.
I just think I'm sorry, that part, like stuff like that is what really gets to me.
I think that's when the game kind of did go downhill when we started dealing with actual people. It was like, okay, it's fine for like a little bit. Like I'm fine with like Judge Holloway and with Curtis, but just having these tons of people coming at me, it's like, why don't they run away? I'm obviously like kicking ass.
It works better when it's obviously self-defense on your part, especially when you have like enough ammo and you just pick them off one by one with headshots. You start to feel like, I don't know. I'm just thinking about like their school days and like, you know, what their first prom was like. There's a lot of people.
Yeah.
It doesn't affect him at all. Like nothing, very little does. I think Alex and Elle have so much less going on in their character than the like villains and some of the side characters do.
Well, unless you go to the Silent Hill wiki and then you got some theories about Alex.
Well.
Oh yeah, for sure. Should we? I'm sure we've talked about that before, haven't we?
We've mentioned, but you know, there's some thoughts that Alex is actually gay, and a lot of these monsters are a representation of his inner turmoil about that.
Despite the fact that this is probably the only game that has like an actual romantic interest that isn't your dead wife.
That's the wiki.
Doesn't mean he's not bisexual. Come on, he could still be bi.
I mean, hey, absolutely, he could be pan. You never know. I don't judge.
Yeah. I totally forgot what I was going to say. Never mind.
You know, real quick, let's talk about the music in this game. I know we talked about
truly the best part of the game.
It is so fantastic, and I was just tweeting about this a little while ago. But Homecoming and Origins and Shattered Memories, like those three, I love listening to like back to back. And one of my favorite things, a lot of the songs in the series are very meta. And obviously, you've heard me rant about Love Psalm a couple of times, but
okay, bring it up again. Come on.
So Paul Mercier plays.
I knew it.
It's awesome. I just made a bunch of new friends playing Resistance, and I got to tell all of them too.
There's like a 6 foot thick concrete wall, and people are like, "I like Resident Evil 4," and then Rourke just bursts through the wall, and he's like, "Did you know?
Why are you running?" But one of my favorite things in this game is One More Soul to the Call.
Yes, I love that song.
And how deliciously meta that song is. Because
it tells you the whole game.
It's telling you two stories. the 4 children sacrificed before Alex was supposed to, and Harry, James, Heather, and Henry. It perfectly lines up with their characters. You have one more soul to the call. Let me look up the lyrics so I don't get it wrong.
While you're doing that, I don't know if everyone agrees that like towards the like in Shattered Memories, like Akira kind of felt like he was kind of losing the creative spark. I feel like I feel like Homecoming was like his last truly great one. Whereas
I kind of agree with you. Yeah.
Well, yeah, Shattered Memories is weaker for sure, but
I don't mean it's bad for the record.
Yeah.
I just mean like you can tell he's struggling a bit.
But yeah, listen to this. You have calling the children, conception and dying, silent but screaming. And then you have damage done to the flesh, what they said in the name of the Harry and his daughter, the flesh. Damage done to my heart is the start of the end. James's wife, his love. Damage done to my soul. I know it knows where my Heather and her split soul with Alessa. Damage done to my life, cursing loud at the chaos. Henry locked in a room, his life gone. Everyone he knows locked behind a chained door. I love it.
Yeah, it's just great. Like I still get chills when I hear it. Like when I was writing this, I was just listening to the soundtrack, kind of just trying to get myself in the mood because I was so soured with my last gameplay through it. And I'm just like, God, this CD kicks ass. I love the lyrics. Like the lyrics aren't weird. Like Silent Hill 3 gets weird with like
the Swiss cheese hot nose.
I mean, but this one, all the lyrics
I love that guy so much.
Are pretty solid. It's not weird. It doesn't get weird, and it really does tie so well to the game. Yeah. I mean, Akira loved it so much he reused Witchcraft.
Shadows of the Damned.
Yeah.
It was the same damn song.
Yeah.
It's great. It's a great soundtrack, and all of the songs I think are great. Elle's theme and Alex's theme, they're all really good. Your father, his orders is like, it's so good. It's so good.
Akira knocked it out of the park. This needs a vinyl release. Come on.
Yes.
That's probably on the docket, I would imagine. Yeah, I always thought the Homecoming soundtrack was particularly effective. It was, for me, it was ambient, and most of all, it was melancholy, which other games, definitely Silent Hill 2, dipped into, and 3 to a lesser extent. But I remember this overwhelming sense of melancholy and how that tied in with the characters and the actual gameplay. What Alex eventually finds out about him and his family in the town. Just this overwhelming melancholy, and I really enjoyed it.
Yeah, something I do think is interesting is it had been a little bit of a while since I played it like with the sound on, because it's like a podcast game for me, where I just put on like Game Grumps or something and play it with the sound off. But I listened to the soundtrack so much that going and playing the game again, the game uses different mixes of the songs, which I feel like the games don't normally do. They normally just kind of play like they do on the CD. This game, like when you first meet, what the hell's the guy's Curtis? When you first meet him, it plays Alex's theme, but it's a completely different recording.
Well, the thing is, I noticed that the official release, like on like Spotify and stuff, there's this weird remix. But if you got the CD, the promo soundtrack, I believe it's actually the normal version of the song. It was weird because Alex's theme? It was a weird like synthesizer version. Yeah. Yeah. It seems to be that for the only like the retail release of the soundtrack. But let me double check. Give me 1 sec.
Sound design in this game is great too. You talked about using Havoc physics. It scares the living shit out of me every time I bump into a table. It's so loud and startling.
Just like the movie.
Yeah.
I double checked, and on the promo soundtrack, which you got for, it was weird because you did not get it for pre-ordering the game at the time. You got it for ordering Origins and Homecoming in November. It was some weird promotion. You got this as a bonus soundtrack. And on the bonus soundtrack, you get the normal version of Alex's theme. But when Milan Records re-released it, years later, it now had the remix version on it, which is on Spotify as well.
I really like the soundtrack for this game. One thing I will say about the overall sound in the game is that it was very poorly mixed.
It is. It's
you have sometimes it is blowing your damn ears out, and then other times you're just like, I literally need subtitles for everything that's going on right now.
Yeah. Especially the voices. It's got that Sonic Adventure 2 problem where everyone's whispering but the music's loud as shit.
Deadly Premonition.
And the cutscenes, going from the cutscenes to the actual gameplay, you always knew when it happened because you went from theater sound to normal.
Yeah.
So I meant to ask this, what was the version you guys played? It was ported on PS3, and it was on 360 and PC. I first played it on 360. It was okay playthrough, not a lot of issues. I did have a lot of issues with the PC version, which was $40 for I don't know how many years before it finally went on sale.
A very long time.
For $20. It's still overpriced in my opinion.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Oh yeah, it's an ancient game. My first playthrough was PS3, and I don't remember if that generation PS3 games were almost always worse than the 360 ones.
Yeah.
But, oh my God! So, yeah, you're right, Whitney. So Canadian dollars, Homecoming is $43 on Steam still. What the hell?
Why?
They just haven't lowered it.
Konami just forgot this game existed. I think.
I guarantee you that's the case.
I paid $40 for it to stream it.
Oh,
I waited.
Yikes.
Yeah.
I played the PS3 version the very first time I played it, but I also rented it from a Blockbuster. So back when that was a thing, every time since then I've played it on PC, and one thing I will say is the PC port is where you get into just how did you ship this levels of bugs. The big issues that I have with the technical stuff is buttons aren't mapped to the correct place that they are visually, so you wind up just tapping all over an entire wall to get a trick door to open up, and things just would not trigger correctly because they just weren't mapped right. Getting caught up on things in the environment that are mapped 1.5 feet to your left, and all of that is from the PC version.
Yeah, that's why I was so pissed off at it to begin with, because that's when I went back to college, I remember, and I was working part-time and could not afford a PS3 at the time. And it took me a little bit longer to get a PS3, so I was only playing the PC version, and it just was so awful, and it ruined my life,
There was even an issue with the sound. You have to do a fan patch to get it to actually play the sound correctly. All these hoops you have to go through. It's okay, maybe Deadly Premonition isn't the only one with a terrible PC port.
No,
I played the 360 version the first time around, and I don't remember having any issues with it.
Yeah, there wasn't any issues. I didn't have problems with crashing. The sound seemed to work. Yeah.
Yep.
It wasn't until I was trying to stream the PC where I was like, oh God.
Actually, I just remembered there's a 360 crash, which is on PC. It's when you take the elevator down. And
you can't skip the cutscene.
Yeah, when you meet Curtis, you can't skip the cutscene. I think that's every version.
Yeah, I think this game, it used the Double Helix's engine that they used for their other games. And they probably just didn't have enough time to polish it before. In fact, because if I recall correctly, the PC version came out a little later.
Yeah, it was a month later.
Yeah, they just didn't have enough time to make a proper port.
Yeah, I played it for the first time on 360, and it was the very first 360 game I 100% of the achievements on.
Same.
And then years, like a year ago, I went and got the PC version because it went on sale, and I cannot beat it because it crashes every single time. So I gave up. Oh, and we were talking about bugs. The only problem I've ever had with the 360 copy, and I think this might be my fault because I was running back and forth because I kept I don't remember what I was trying to do, but I kept running back and forth, and when it's in that alleyway behind Alex's house, and you transition into the graveyard. I was walking back and forth doing something, and then I was finally like, all right, let's go to the graveyard, and the graveyard wasn't loaded, and it was just endless fog. I was
I don't think I've gotten that.
Yeah, I think I just I kept loading and unloading something, and the game just gave up.
I did. You know how we give Downpour a hard time a lot for its repeating textures,
window textures, yeah,
and furniture and whatnot. Was I the only one who was annoyed to keep seeing the same skinned body over and over?
Over and over again.
The one that jump scares you the 5 minutes of the game.
It comes through the ceiling. You just keep seeing the same. I'm like, this is so old. Come on, guys.
Can you go?
Okay, I was about to go. So this is only semi related, but I'll try and a lot of the modeling in this is kind of questionable. I do love that John Locke is just in this game for some reason.
It goes to the art direction. For some reason, they leaned heavily on actual actors, actual people. But the fact that the John Locke there's a photo of him on the beach for the show Lost, and then there's a piece of key art for Homecoming. Exact same pose, exact same clothing folds, exact same everything. They literally traced it. They traced this image, and that I feel like if anyone had really gotten notice of that, that would have been a lawsuit. That was so shameless.
I kept waiting for him to smile with an orange in his mouth.
Yeah. When he sees Alex, he's like, "Don't you walk away from me! Don't tell me what I can't do ever."
We also have Wheeler with the Forrest Whitaker.
Yeah, the little squinty eye. Yeah,
and if you remember, they recycled that art for early concept art for the DJ in Downpour. There's one or two pieces where they recycle that Forrest Whitaker art for his face.
Oh, they did? I didn't notice that.
It's in the strategy guide.
I'll have to take a look at my strategy guide. Oh, that's so funny. And also, we don't forget that Alex looks like Nick Lachey.
He really does.
As much as I like the character designs we got in the final game, I would have much preferred the ones that were shown off in the previews for Homecoming in the game magazines.
Yeah.
I'm usually not one to complain about things like that or having, the quote-unquote original version, liking that better. But I think in this case, most of the original designs were more compelling than the ones we got. Like Alex, he had a very Kyle Reese from the Terminator look in the concept art. And I know, Amy, you said that Elle's design kind of looked a little more supermodel-y than the version we got.
Just I don't know, there was more detail, and she just looked super pretty compared to... She's just kind of there,
Yeah, I actually like the concept one a little more. It seemed, besides sort of a makeup-y look, I thought it was a more natural, sort of normal girl look to her. And that's not to say I don't enjoy the designs that do appear in the final version.
I mean, the bone structure and everything was different.
Yeah, I just remember seeing that concept art and I'm like, oh man, Alex had this real kind of strung out, kind of, again, Kyle Reese from the Terminator look. And I'm like, oh, that would have been awesome to play.
And they mentioned actually in some of the articles, Alien and Terminator, I think, were influences to them while making this game, the art direction.
Yeah, to clarify, I know that Silent Hill kind of has a history of especially Silent Hill 2, characters look like celebrities. But I don't know, the John Locke one always made me laugh a lot because it was the exact same clothes. He's just in this game for some reason. That's what happened after the show ended. He just ended up in Silent Hill somehow.
Well, Naomi Watts went on to do Deadly Premonition. So.
Oh, there you go. Right?
Yep. Oh, it's just. What kind of? Speaking of the character models, some of them looked really bad. Like, Mayor Bartlett looks really awful.
Oh, so bad.
Like, I remember I was streaming it and I came up to him and I'm just like, oh my god, his face looks like it's melting. Yeah, he looks dead. I know he's supposed to be drunk and drinking a lot and whatnot, but he looks so awful.
Look. If you had to hang around with like Dahlia and Vincent at some point, you'd probably look like that too eventually. What was that thing, CJ? Geomancy.
Gyromancy.
So that's why he looks like that.
Oh, we didn't talk about this either. So in the hotel, there's a character we never see. It's a ghost, and you have to help this woman get her memories. We learn, exploring the hotel, that Mayor Bartlett was having an affair with the owner's wife. The owner was also terminally ill at the time. And just before he died, he found out and was pretty upset. I always thought that the woman ghost we talked to and interact with was the woman, the wife of the hotel owner. What'd you think of her character? Did you guys think it was cool to kind of interact with like a ghost character again? Kind of like, what's his face from Ernest?
Ernest Baldwin, yeah.
Yeah, from Silent Hill 2. Collecting memories, postcards. I thought it was a neat little aside.
Yeah, I have a whole wild fan theory about how that's actually like the remnants of Mary from 2, because she didn't quite get closure the way that James did, and Alex is giving that closure to her because they're actually secretly related because of the name thing and all that.
So my wife had the exact same reaction because she was watching me play. She's like, "That's Mary!"
Nice.
I mean, maybe.
Well, we did ask Tom if there was any like connection given the names. He's just like, no, they're just kind of similar. I don't know if it was conscious.
Didn't know, but that supposedly the character was named before he got there, and that might have been the intention originally, but basically nobody really knows what the original.
Yeah. Well, they ended up changing the spelling.
Yeah, they changed the spelling.
Oh, okay.
So I'm wondering if it was meant to be a connection to Mary.
I think it's one of those things that like where fans kind of like try and reach for a connection that may or may not be there. Like I remember when Downpour came out, people were like, "Oh, the mailman, he's the one that gave James Mary's letter."
That's absolutely the intention, though. When you get to Book of Memories and he's just the mailman for Silent Hill, I guarantee you that they would have said that out.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure Tom said the same thing.
Oh, really? But then the letter in Silent Hill 2 doesn't exist.
Neither does the mailman.
Yeah, but it's not. It literally doesn't exist. The mailman is there to a degree. You know what I'm saying? Like what I'm saying is like you could take that, the hotel as a reference or not.
Yeah. I mean,
I think I like that the character is kind of open-ended enough that you can interpret it in a few different ways.
I'm a little bit confused though, because there's a note that says that Bartlett was dragging some fertilizer to the hotel's greenhouse. Are we supposed to think that he was hiding his son's body at the hotel?
Maybe he was trying to appease the sepulcher. Or something, because it's all like buried underground. Everything's like, maybe if I plant a tree here, it'll be good.
Yeah, but I don't know. It just seems weird that he would drag his son's body all the way to Silent Hill. Maybe it happened after the shit with Adam not doing his end of the bargain. Maybe he was like, "Hey, look, I did my son. He's dead."
Like the background on that character was the most mixed. Like Scarlett's story made sense to me, but this one kind of was like, wait, why he's in Silent Hill for? I don't like. There was a little bit that I felt was off.
Also, the whole fact is, you first meet him in the cemetery. He's digging up graves. What is he doing? You never get a reason for why he's just in the graveyard digging up people's graves. Is he just upset because
he put the other children in it?
No, there was.
Maybe he doesn't remember where he buried his son, and he wants to double check.
His son is supposedly in the tomb, or his son is supposedly at the greenhouse, because there's a note about it being really more heavy than it should have been, and his son was already did he bury his son alive in Shepherd's Glen, then dig him up, and now he's just sort of kind of having a mental break where he feels like he has to dig up his son again to bring him to the hotel?
It's worth remembering that Curtis, like another crazy asshole from the cult, thinks Bartlett's crazy too. Like, he says that out loud. So he maybe he just completely broke.
You want to talk to the mayor. He knows everybody's business.
Mayor Bartlett? You know where I can find him?
Sure. Same place he is every day. Digging up people's graves. You know, there's something seriously wrong with that guy. You know? Like in the head.
That's Mayor Bartlett?
Yep.
I feel like the doctor, like what's happening with him makes a lot of sense. And when you speak to him, he kind of explains and says, I'm releasing the sin. She's here. Like you get kind of a feel for what's going on with him. But when you talk to Bartlett, he doesn't really explain or in any way hint at why he's doing what he's doing.
Listen here, you little asshole.
Yeah.
These people are your responsibility.
Now you listen to me, you little asshole. I did everything I could to protect those people. But you can't stop what's already been
What was
started.
with that voice?
What the hell else do you want from me?
He's definitely the least compelling of the bad guys to me.
He's drunk. He's very defensive, saying that he gave Joey the best life, bought him all the shit he wanted, having an affair with the lady at the hotel. I don't know. His character really didn't speak to me like the other ones did. I was just like, okay, he's dead.
Yep.
Weird voice acting for him.
What?
But yeah, I did like Fitch. His whole thing was really creepy, especially with cutting himself, and God, his death is disturbing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Hi, Daddy! Oh,
And yet kind of
right
like
there.
merciful because he probably didn't feel a thing.
Yep.
Yeah.
This is sort of off topic, but CJ, do you remember like back in the day, there was some like weirdo that was making awkward Silent Hill photoshops on the Reliant Horror Facebook page?
I think.
And he took that picture of what's the dad's name? I totally forget.
Adam?
Which
Adam, and he's cutting himself, and it was right around that like cut yourself for Justin because he was caught smoking
Cut for
weed.
Bieber.
Justin Bieber, cut for Bieber, and it showed him. It's so bad.
Are they still up?
Probably somewhere.
Probably, but I remember that person put up so many weird Silent Hill like photoshops, like one of like Pyramid Head just flying around in space like a rocket.
And I think the one of Adelaide Clemens, Mom said not to do this, but I did anyway, or some shit.
Sorry. Oh God.
Yeah, I mean, was there anything else you guys would like to touch on about Homecoming?
One thing I kind of wanted to bring up was, do you all remember the teaser trailer when it was called Silent Hill 5, and it was just like a guy talking over saying it was war is hell and whatnot. I remember at the time I was super excited by that trailer, mainly just because I always thought like the idea of like a soldier with post-traumatic stress being in Silent Hill would be such a like could produce such interesting monsters and visuals and whatnot.
And we kind of got it a little because Alex was hearing gunfire and explosions when he would collapse, which is weird, knowing that he wasn't a soldier.
His siren is like a war siren, like an air raid siren.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I think like I feel like I've been a little bit of the dissenting voice this whole show, and I was tremendously let down by the whole he was not actually a soldier aspect, because I feel it's like a little bit of a bait and switch and a little bit of a dishonest one from the from the developers.
It's silly. I always thought it was silly. I was like, what?
Mostly it's a shame because there's so many interesting things you could do with a soldier in Silent Hill. And luckily enough, we did get that in Spec Ops: The Line.
Well, yeah, I was just going to bring that up. And in our interview with Tom and CJ, he even brought up that it was a shame that they did that because now they can never bring a soldier to Silent Hill because technically it was already been done, even though he wasn't really a soldier.
I think
and
by this point they probably could. I think enough time has passed where they could do it in an interesting way and actually do it. I think possibly just the novelty of having a soldier back and actually having him be a soldier could be what brings people back.
Just the novelty of having a Silent Hill game.
Right. Now
We're making one again.
I will say that the whole war is hell, like, since I'm a little older, and like the whole war is hell horror trope is, like it all like goes back to like Jacob's Ladder and whatnot.
Yeah.
Like it's been done a lot. So like I don't fault the game so much for that anymore. But like when I was rewatching it for this podcast, a lot of my feelings about the game did not change after all this time. Like I still find it ultimately to be an extremely messy game that like can't really make up its mind what it wants to do. You had this interesting idea of like this is where one sect of the cult broke off and they're doing these own sort of rituals, and it's a tragic story, but on the other hand it still can't get out of the, well, we want to recreate the videotape scene from Silent Hill 2, the big revelation. Like it can't make up its mind what it wants to be, and it just ends up being kind of a messy game as a result, and it's still pretty disappointing to me. But that's kind of like my whole thing with it, and why I'm still admittedly probably more bitter than I should be towards it.
It does jump around so much. Like Alex just ends up collapsing. Oh, he's in a new area.
Yeah.
Oh, that person you thought died is, even though you saw blood trail, is fine, and she's outside your house now. Yay, hell, what's going on?
Yeah, you can tell that you can very much see what Tom Hewlett said, where the game, they just kind of had to try and make a game out of what was there. And if I recall correctly, the original producer, the trilogy guy, he left halfway through the development. Am I correct with that? I think
he ended up getting like redesigned. Konami's like no, and someone else took over. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and I think that's probably why it feels so messy. Is just because it can't quite. It's because it had totally different hands, and originally it was going to be the first part of a trilogy, but now they've got to wrap up the story right away, and Elle was going to be Laura for some reason, and God, I would have hated that more than anything. But I'll leave it at that. It was a game that I kind of enjoyed revisiting, because I always say that even if something say like a piece of media, be it a game, a movie, a book, whatever, an album, the worst thing it can do is make you feel nothing, in the sense that like if you watch a movie and you're just like, well, 2 hours of my life passed, whatever. I always say that that's the worst thing it can do, because even if you hate something, so even me, as I hate Homecoming, I appreciate it because it forces me to look at it and wonder, like, so why do I dislike this? So I do think that
it makes me feel alive.
I just feel that there is something to be learned from it. So like, if those rumored Silent Hill games are real, I'd be like, okay, don't do that. Play that one and don't do it. Anyways, I'm done.
Yeah, I mean,
I agree with you, Kyle.
I like Homecoming a lot. It isn't. I've said it before in other shows. I don't think Homecoming's a very good Silent Hill game, but I think it's fun to play, and that's all I really need from it. Because like, Silent Hill 2 is a game where I have to be invested to play it. I can't just turn it on and just have a blast, because it's not a fun game exactly. It's an experience. Whereas Homecoming, it's like, I don't know, it's Resident Evil 4, but I can move and shoot. That's kind of all it is. Mm-hmm. And I don't, not to big flex. I've never really had a problem with the sliding puzzles or anything. So I just kind of blow through it in an afternoon or something. I think considering all of its development hell trouble, it's amazing it's as good as it is. Because there are games out there, like Sonic Boom or something, where fucking thing barely works. I mean, like, Homecoming's a game. It has a beginning, middle, and end. It's, the PC version has issues, but for the most part, it is serviceable. It's a functioning game. All the pieces go together. The story isn't complete dog shit or anything. It's just, it is what it is.
It is interesting that I'm more recently I'm seeing a lot more defense for this game. Mm-hmm. Like, people are looking back on it a little bit more fondly. I don't know if this is not like old school fans or something, or maybe people who got in thanks to Homecoming. There's a lot more defense for it going around lately. Same with Origins. I was really surprised, like, doing research and seeing Reddit threads like, in defense of Origins, in defense of Homecoming, I had a really good time, I had a great story, music. It's kind of refreshing that even this series' quote-unquote worst entries still are pretty good in their own right, in some aspect. You could always find something about these games to look fondly on, enjoy, whether it's the updated combat, the music, the designs of the creatures. There's something to look forward to. Even if it stumbles in one aspect, it still succeeds in others.
Yeah, and not to mention, over time, you detach yourself from hype and expectations, and you revisit something, remember, like, oh man, I really didn't like this, and you come back and going in with like almost no expectations, you might really like it. I mean, look at the incredible boom the prequels have had, the Star Wars prequels. I mean, those were universally reviled when they released. And now
memes that make them cool now.
Yeah, and in general, I see people defending, like, there's been this video going around of the producer of The Mandalorian, or no, he was the producer of Clone Wars, going on this like really stirring speech, breaking down the meaning behind Qui-Gon's death and everything. It's total horse shit. That's not at all what Lucas intended, but it's like, it makes you think, and you're like, wow, in that context, I think that movie's a lot better. Don't believe it, but it makes that movie a lot better. And so I think, yeah, any sort of retrospect, remove yourself from your expectations. Like, I recently watched the Speed Racer movie again, and I loved it, and I hated that movie when it came out. Revisit things. If you think you hate something, give it a few years, try it again.
I saw Event Horizon the other day, and that was the same reaction. I saw it when it came out, and I was like, it's not that great. And I saw it recently, and I was like, Paul Anderson made a good movie.
I do think one of the things that I've seen...
one or two.
One of the things that I've seen is that the community itself of players for a few years there had a really, really hideous racism problem. Like, there's no way to say it differently. There was a big racism problem, and in the last couple of years, there's been this heavy push by the silent ultra majority of the fans saying, hey, so if you don't have a reason to hate the later games beyond these weren't Japanese guys and I only like Japanese guys making my Silent Hill games, you're going to need to sit down and shut the whole fuck up. And since that push, there's been a lot less of this, like, and oh my God, I feel so bad for Tom Hewlett, because there are so many people that the second they hear his name, it's just like they go into a rage. And I'm like, did Tom Hewlett kick your puppy in the face? Like, what the fuck happened here that the second you hear he was involved with a game, that game shit. Okay, but I need you to give me 5 actual game-related reasons why.
Yeah, and
I think if people actually take a look at Tom's history, and you actually start like talking about like the things that Whitney referenced earlier, like, how do people still not know about that? I guess you could just not believe, those stories. But Tom's whole history with the series, he was trying to fix something that was half broken to begin with, and if anything, he made them palatable. If not pleasant. And I at this point, I still don't understand why there's so much.
Well, they knew his name, and they needed a scapegoat for their ire,
Yeah, I do think it's calmed down a little bit since more information has come out, and like the interview that we did with I think it was an anonymous interview talking about the breakdown at Konami with Homecoming. I can't remember quite, but I feel like people have lightened up a little bit, because 5 years ago, the Silent Hill subreddit was a fucking nightmare. You couldn't talk to anybody. It was a gigantic, angry circle jerk. Now it's kind of calmed down a little, not 100%, but it's calmed down. Mostly it's just kind of sad.
Ever since Kojima left and it came out how Konami treated the employees that left with him. Like, once it came out that this company's actually run by some really fucking horrible people, then it started shifting a little, like, oh, maybe the problem wasn't Tom Hewlett. Maybe the problem was the remaining leadership at Konami is just a bunch of fucking dicks waggling around on desks.
Yeah, the problem was that he made the mistake of putting himself out there and trying to interact with the fans. You notice that Shetsky doesn't get a lot of hate, and he was actual, like, producer on Downpour. It's because Tom would go on the forums and try to talk with fans, and he would say things and people would take it the wrong way or
take it out of context deliberately.
Yeah.
And not to mention the worst thing that hurt them was the how should I put it, that pair that were identical and perfect in every way. That I remember something. I don't remember if it was them, but there was a video where they were talking about those videos Tom made leading up to the HD collection, and he has a video where he's basically trying to explain what happened with. It was like there's like I think he's talking about the voice acting thing, and in this video they're talking about like you can tell how guilty he looks. Like, no, I think he mostly looks like a producer that's not used to be on camera. What the fuck?
And I think multiple people have said at this point that as if you want to be mad at anybody, be mad at Konami for wanting to outsource it. That the company made the decision to take it out of Japan and outsource it to the West. So if you have any complaints, don't level them at the people who actually had to make the game. Level it at the people who made the decision to do that to begin with.
I think,
and if you're still on about the complaints, take a pachinko machine and shove it up your ass.
I think, although I will say, I think it's very fair to critique the later games, but what I would say is the thing that people should do is just like don't make it about the person that made it. Make it about like the game. Like I don't begrudge Double Helix or anything or anyone that works there. I still think Homecoming is a terrible video game, but
yeah, there's plenty to actually say about the games. You don't.
I think people have trouble disassociating the creator from the creation in that regard, where they see something they don't like and they just assume the creator's an asshole. And also, there seems to be a weird like misunderstanding that no creator out there is making something and going, hey, I'm gonna make this shit. Like, no,
they seem to don't understand that these games are a group effort and no single person is going to dictate every single thing. I was really surprised.
There's a creative process involved with multiple decisions on various levels.
They have to answer to corporate. They have to answer to Konami corporate, and we've seen that corporate doesn't make the best decisions. So if corporate says, I want you to take that cool idea you have for the Wii, and now we want a remake. Make it into Silent Hill 1 on the Wii with Ice. I know you had a good idea for a separate game, but no, we want the remake. Hey, you know what? We want a Vita game, and we want it a dungeon crawler. You got to make that happen.
Well, even at the beginning, the Resident Evil, they wanted to make it a Resident Evil clone or in the vein of that, and even then, at the very beginning, developers were like, let's do what we want to do.
They only were able to do that because there was no real oversight, because they thought they were going to fail anyway. And they're like, we're not going to bother.
Yeah,
Let them do their own thing.
It's been going on longer than even the later games, or like even look at like 3. Like I remember Ito saying that like, yeah, the monsters in 3 aren't very they're not symbolic like 2, because my boss said that the monsters in 2 sucked. Like he straight up said that. Like it's been a problem with the games for a while, and like I think half the I think even Silent Hill 4, like I know some people really like that game, but I honestly kind of think it's not very good in a lot of ways, and you can just see like meddling from like outside forces with that game.
I'm not the only one.
Oh no, it
4 blows.
It's just a pain in the ass to play.
Yep,
but yeah,
gameplay. Story's great.
Yeah, it's a messy game. And I feel like Silent Hill, especially, it's like, I think one of the reasons why the fan base is so angry is because we keep being let down over and over. Like, do you remember? I remember talking to Whitney and CJ on the Whispers in the Dark podcast when Silent Hills was announced, and it was like, CJ said it's too good to be true. Like Kojima making a Silent Hill game, like it was real, but it was like it was
They're
trending
not gonna
number.
do this.
It's like trending #1 in the world. It was a huge phenomenon. So many companies would kill for the kind of attention that game got, and Konami fucking canceled it. Like
they canceled it and tried to.
And
They
then put
not
out
only
like 6
canceled it-
more pachinko machines.
Well, Konami not only canceled Silent Hills, they tried to wipe its existence off the face of the earth.
Well, then
Which
they
is-
tried to wipe fucking Kojima off the face of the earth too.
Yeah.
Like, these are just, the problem is quite obviously not the developers, it is the leadership.
Yeah.
Yep.
And now we have Konami, where the
I've never
only
understood why people don't put that. I guess it's because Konami, there's no human face.
Yeah.
It's so much easier to blame a person than an entity.
Well, you can't. I mean, right now, without looking at it, like, can any of you tell me the president of Konami off the top of your head?
No.
I can't.
Nope.
Exactly.
A trash can.
It's just. I think that's part of the reason why fans, and there's a problem. There's a larger problem with games culture in general, where it's just absurdly toxic to a degree. Like, you have people think it's great to be angry at video games, and there's people that have crafted their entire online personas around that. And when you add in things like fucking insane voice actors like Guy Seehee, yeah, I have no problem saying that.
5G did it.
Yep.
It's just it's a shame, because like I would love to play a new Silent Hill game again, but even with those rumors, like I just can't get my hopes up. I can't get crushed again.
Here's hope here. It's gone now.
Same.
I honestly, as much as I love the Silent Hill series, and as much as it has honestly kind of changed the direction that my career in life went, I don't know that I would be comfortable giving Konami my money anymore, frankly.
Yeah.
What about Sony?
Well,
because there's a rumor that they're trying to, Sony's trying to buy the
I
property.
would love it if Sony bought the property. And as
Just-
far as like the developer thing, there are people who say, like, a little off topic, I play Fallout 76 with my husband, and I own a bar in Austin. Fallout 76 was developed and is currently being further developed by Bethesda Austin. And there are so many people who get on that Reddit and they just say really just heinous, shitty things to and about the developers. And I'm like, these are guys who come to my bar, and I have a lot of problems with the way that they've developed it, but I wouldn't walk in my bar and be like, hey, you shithead, get the fuck out. Like, they're human beings. Jesus Christ. You don't have to like every single thing that they do to know that you are still speaking to and about a person.
Yeah.
Not to mention when your job is that shitty. Like, how many of us have have had a shitty job with a shitty boss where we're just like, you know what? Fuck it. Like, you can't give you 110% in that kind of situation.
Another thing, trying to tie it back into Homecoming and the troubled development, is I always say, like, when a video game is bad, like, no one spends millions of dollars and spends years of their lives making a game to make a game everybody hates. And also, I would just frame it as, if you're listening to this and you're wondering how did they make Homecoming and it was so terrible, and like, my answer to that would be, think of any time you have ever worked on a group project, be it on work or on school, and think about how it can go wrong in so many different ways that nobody
It always goes wrong.
Yeah, exactly.
I hated group projects.
Yeah, think about doing a group project and all the things that can normally go wrong. And now imagine that the professor changes the parameters of the project 4 times. One of them's 2 weeks before you ship. Like, there's that. It was always, and I feel like with the later games, one thing people forget, it really, once you hear about the project development, feels like it was always set up to fail. And not because they wanted to waste their money, but because there were people who had no business saying anything about game direction or the development of this game, who felt they needed to personally get involved and didn't realize that they were riding a horse, but they had no fucking clue how to ride a horse. You don't belong in game development if your job is sign the checks and make sure to hook them up with somebody who can print the disc.
So, in conclusion, Why is John Locke in this game?
Yeah, I just want to say again, just like Tom said in our 2012 interview, there was real passion from the developers. They wanted to make a good game. They didn't set out to make a terrible Silent Hill game. Unfortunately, it just didn't always pan out, and it's sad, but I'm glad it got made. If Homecoming didn't get made, we wouldn't have, it's quite a big of a fan base. So many people I have talked to over the years got into the series thanks to seeing the movie and then going, oh my god, there's a new Silent Hill game. I should check that out. It's on a next-gen system. I can play this. And they loved the game, and they got interested in the earlier titles and became lifelong fans. And I personally don't love the game, but there's still stuff I really do appreciate that it contributed to the series as a whole. And I just wish people would not be so nasty, especially to each other. When someone says that their favorite game is Homecoming, you do not need to jump down their throat and tell them that they're wrong and they have no taste.
Yeah,
People like what they like.
Yeah.
Don't ruin somebody's day over something as inconsequential as a video game.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Don't ruin developers' days for just trying to do their job with things that they could not change.
And don't think that you're going to get another Silent Hill game by being dicks to everybody all the time, because that is a real good way to make the last few remaining people at Konami who might either want to sell this IP to Sony or make another Silent Hill game go, you know what? Never mind. We're not getting involved with that because they're not going to be happy with anything.
And also another thing real quick, if you are really, really a big fan and you see somebody dissing it on Twitter, please don't quote tweet at the guy, at somebody that worked on the thing.
Oh, Lord.
Because I tweeted about how I didn't really like that new Doom movie, and the developer of fucking Dusk quote tweeted it at the director of the movie, and I have never felt worse in my life. It's like, I just didn't like the movie. I don't want to.
Why would anyone do that?
They like to start drama.
Yeah, and so now I have the director of this movie I didn't really like, and I'm feeling bad for ruining his day, and the developer of a game I really like, and both of them are like, yeah, no, you should have really liked this. It's like, just leave me alone. I just didn't like the thing. I'm sorry.
I was expecting you to say like some other random fan quote tweeted you.
Oh, the developer of Dusk.
You know the interesting thing is I just realized this, but Double Helix, they actually merged into Amazon Game Studios, and I did a digital preview event yesterday with a bunch of Amazon Game Studios people. So maybe I talked to Homecoming people and didn't even know it.
Oh.
But it's like I said, I think Homecoming taught me a lot about what I actually really love about Silent Hill, and so in that sense, I do think it's very valid, even if I don't like it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Anything else, you guys, or should wrap things up?
I liked Homecoming when it came out. I still maintain that I don't personally believe that there's been a bad Silent Hill game. I think they've had issues. I played Book of Memories. I liked it for what it was. For me, I set aside. I have expectations for every Silent Hill release, obviously, but I set them aside in different areas, right? So you had 4. Everybody was mostly the same up until 4. Then it was farmed out to the Western developers. Then it was on Wii. Then it was on portable. So I kind of tailored my expectations based on that, and it's almost like, oh, we got another Silent Hill game, like we got another, fan fiction, or like we got another one. It's not going to be like the old ones, and just take it on its own and on its own merits. And I'm not going to say I've never been disappointed, but I still maintain that there hasn't been, for me at least, a bad Silent Hill game, like one that was so bad that I had no interest in it. The closest that it got was the preview version of Origins before it changed developers. And I remember looking at that one trailer and I was like, ooh, I think for the first time, I'm not going to pick that one up. And that killed me, because I was like, I love this series. I have tattoos. I have, stories and everything. But this is the one I'm going to have to skip.
Wait, what's your tattoo?
I have I'm the guy that I love Japanese men, Destiny. So I have a Japanese kanji of the Japanese horror, and then I have Silent Hill in the newsprint right below it.
Fun.
So, yep.
I have a My Little Pony Silent Hill nurse blend.
Well, you got me beat. All I have is text.
Well, because I'm an overgrown toddler.
So what I'm getting out of this is that you must be a huge fan of Silent Ponyville.
Okay, you know what? I would murder somebody just to get that made.
Well, I mean, there's like a 3,000-page fan fiction, Silent Ponyville.
Okay, I was very excited for just a second, and then I remembered all the fan fiction you've ever introduced me to, and so I have to ask: what kind of fan fiction?
No, it's actually it's a lot like Fallout Equestria, where it takes itself super seriously.
Okay, so it's not like fucking flying dicks.
No,
Okay.
it's not feral Catman Wesker tongue-kissing Chris Redfield in a helicopter.
You know, we have to ask. We have to ask with you because the fan fiction that you managed to find, if we're streaming live, is always real sketch.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I mean, hey, I started reading that fan fiction, and we exceeded our donation goal by a lot. So get ready for more.
I would pay to be able to bleach it out of my brain.
I'll have to find something real special. I wonder if there's any dirty fanfic for Deadly Premonition. There has to be, right?
Oh no!
I think there is, but I think it's on Tumblr. I'm sure I could probably track some down for you.
I really want to know who's the top and who's the bottom between Zach and York.
Wouldn't that be incest?
Yeah. Well, I didn't mean with themselves. Fuck CJ. That's just masturbation. That's not.
Oh, I have regrets. So many regrets.
See that, Zach?
Okay, on that note.
So, Silent Hill Homecoming.
Yay!
All right. Well, let's wrap this up. Everybody, let everybody know what you're working on. Have anything cool in the works, Silent Hill related? Go.
Well, you can check out my YouTube channel. I do videos on Silent Hill. And speaking of fan fiction, I also read the bad fan fiction I used to write as a kid aloud, and we laugh at it. It's really terrifying.
Any Silent Hill?
We're gonna do Silent Hill ones if I reach a certain amount on my Patreon. I wrote Henry/Walter because I was a gay horny teenager, and Silent Hill 4 was my favorite game. So,
wow,
that is something I did create. Yeah.
I will be at Rely on Horror as usual. I'm working on a couple of games that I think Silent Hill fans would like right now. One of them is an interview with the developers of Tormented Fathers, and they've got the second version of that game, or the sequel to that game coming out, Broken Porcelain. It is a survival horror that does sneak really well, and I think that there's a lot that people would like with the new one coming up as you play as a young girl. But I am also our person who is following the Dark Pictures anthology Little Hope, and if there has ever been a bigger call out to Silent Hill, I'm not quite sure what it is.
Cough, there's a reason why. Cough.
I also work at Rely on Horror. I don't do anything. I'm not the Silent Hill guy. I do Resident Evil stuff over there, but I do art commissions over on my Twitter at Cecil the Cat, and I can draw you a Silent Hill thing if you want. I have a picture of James and a picture of Heather up there that I think look very cool.
I'm also on RelyOnHorror.com, and I'm not working on anything particular. Although relevant to this podcast, we did report on the Silent Hill reboot / potential Silent Hills revival rumor from two of our sources, not one like has been thought by some people on the internet. Yeah.
Yeah, we have two sources for that. It isn't just the one guy you think it is.
Yeah, and yeah, we are very much hoping that those things come to fruition as well. So stay tuned on the site. If we get any more inside information, we might post it. And yeah, nothing else I think I could think of that we're working on. But if Sony has a game conference thing next month, might be a place to look.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, I've been seeing people going, "Oh, looking forward to this," like sneaky little tweets. So we'll see.
I mean, I'd say at this point the only shoe-in is RE8, but we'll see. Fingers crossed.
I am, like I said, I do freelance journalism in the games industry. Probably the most consistent thing I do is I write a lot of reviews for IGN. But recently I did 2 Silent Hill related stories. The first one I wrote about Silent Hill's actual connection to Centralia, not how the Silent Hill was inspired by Centralia, the video games, but like the actual history of how that came apart, and actually interviewed Whitney for part of that. It's on VG 24/7. And the other one I did was I talked to the Silent Hill 2 Enhanced Edition team about how they go about developing this amazing remaster that they do, and that's on Fanbyte. Yeah, that's it for me.
Amy, are you doing anything cool?
Well, right now I am doing... Well, I'm fighting with my web hosts because I'm having some site issues right now, but hopefully that'll be fixed by the time this is up. But also I'm working on some videos of all the references and inspirational material in the Silent Hill series, and I'm already in like 24 minutes into it. And I'm also making weird shit like Silent Hill Homecoming birthday cards with foil.
Yeah, and they should. You have a couple cards right now on your Etsy store. You have the save squares and the Halo of the Sun from Homecoming up there already. So, yeah, very cool. I don't really have anything Silent Hill. Well, actually, I do. Okay, I'm working on my collection site redesign, but I don't think people care about that.
We care.
I was going to say you have a new podcast coming out.
Mm-hmm.
Well, yeah, you're listening to it now.
My God. Oh, this is
Yeah.
this is the Silent Hill 2 revelation thing where we were on a podcast the whole time.
Are you a dog at a console, Whitney?
I'm Mira. Boop, boop, boop. Bark, bark, bark. Yeah.
I knew
it. Yeah, so I don't really have any. I'm hoping Silent Hill will be a new game will come out, get me excited, but right now my hope is dead. But I would like to be wrong, so I'm looking forward to coming weeks. So thank you everybody for joining me and everybody for listening to my retrospective so far. I hope everyone's staying safe and take the time to replay these games if you haven't already. You might find yourself actually enjoying the game you might thought you hated completely. You never know. So I hope you guys have a great week, and thank you all for joining. Bye.
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 Hasta luego.
Look like podcast to you?
Voices in the Static, the podcast of the Silent Hill fan site, SilentHillHistoricalSociety.com, was recorded and edited by me, Whitney Chavis. I want to give a big thanks to all my guests and you guys for listening. It's been a blast gushing about this series to you all over the years.